member. You were going to be between cabinet members anyway because Cara is a cabinet member. She's just on maternity leave, so it's the same. Principally, it's the same. No, I know you're not. I am. I'm being fussy.
Pray silence for the Lord Mayor.
Good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to this evening's council meeting. My name is Councillor Paul de Moldenberg and I am the Lord Mayor of Westminster. I'd like to remind all members that we are live streaming this meeting and therefore microphones will be active when members are speaking and the cameras will be broadcasting until the meeting closes. A list of all members who are present will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Before we start the formal meeting, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge all those members who will be retiring from the council at the end of this electoral term. Thank you for your service to the residents of our great city. I would also like in particular to thank councillors Louise Hyams and Ruth Bush, who have served this council for over 20 years each and who deserve special recognition for that. I know that they would both like to say a few words and to take a moment in this chamber this evening. I invite Councillor Hyams to speak.
I think this was thrust upon me sometime this afternoon, so I haven't had this, which was good. So it hasn't given me much time to prepare, but it did give me time to reflect a little bit. Yes, I've been a councillor here for 28 years. I don't look old enough, do I? No. And it's been an absolute honour to serve on this council. And to represent a ward like mine, you know, St James's, and I've always worked with wonderful colleagues, and I must give a shout out to Tim. Where are you, Tim? Oh, Tim and Mark, and a few that came before. And they've been amazing to work with. It's a big ward, a busy ward, and but together we've worked it and worked hard at it. And that's why the three of us are still here, probably. And of course, the highlight of my time on the council, and as you will, I'm surely say, Paul, is when you have your year as Lord Mayor. It was an amazing year. I did so much. You see the length and the breadth of the city and what goes on, and you meet amazing people. I think my favourite was Roger Daltrey. King too, but Roger Daltrey does stay in my mind. And I guess there have been some achievements I have been proud of. I mean, when I first joined the council, I was asked to serve on the Adoption and Fostering Committee. And I served on that, actually, till you lot got elected, and then I was shoved off, which was a bit disappointing. But it was incredible to serve on that committee and see what happens to children who, you know, unfortunately their parents can't look after them, and they have to come to the adoption panel, and they're, you know, but often it has a happy ending, because we then, after we decide, yes, children need to be adopted, we then have the parents who are going to adopt them come to another committee. That was always very heartwarming. I was also actually, I remember when I first started the council, I served on the Social Service Committee for Children's Services. And I remember they were talking about the terrible results that our looked after children got when they took their exams, their O-levels, I think they probably were then. And I thought back, because my children hadn't long gone through that process, and I thought, what did I do as a mother when my children weren't doing very well? And a lot of people like myself would get a tutor. They would go and have tutoring before the exams in the Easter holidays. So I suggested it to our officer of the time, and he said, "That's a good idea, councillor." And it was arranged, and the children did do better, and it actually led to what we now call the virtual school. So all our children have extra lessons, and it has helped them over the years to achieve in life. So I'm very proud of that. I also remember a particular planning committee that Alistair Moss was chairing, and the item I went to speak on was the memorial that was proposed for the Bomber Command people that lost their life. 55,000 of them died during the Second World War, and it was quite controversial because, people didn't like the thought of what the Bomber Command did at some stage during the war. But nevertheless, they did help us win that war, and 55,000 men lost their lives. So I went to the committee, supported the application, and Alistair Moss, as I said, and all the other committee members said, right, yeah, we're going to approve this. And all I remember is there was a load of these chaps, they were still alive then, and sadly none of them are anymore, but they were alive then, and they clapped and cheered. And I think quite unusually for a planning committee, I had to get up and they were hugging me and kissing me. and as I say, that's something that I will always remember. So anyway, going back to my ward, what an amazing ward I've represented. St James's, I know you all love your wards, and they're all great wards in Westminster, but St James's, right in the heart of this great city of ours, is a little bit special. I hope I can say that. And it's so diverse. I used to say in my speeches when I was Lord Mayor that every part of human life is there. We've got the king now in the palace, and we've got rough sleepers in doorways, and everything in between. So it's just an amazing ward, and I'm really proud that I've represented it for 28 years. So I wish all of you good luck in the coming elections, especially this lot. And I don't know whether Sanzar's normally here, the guy that's going to replace me, but I can't see it. Funnily enough, I can't see him tonight. But anyway, I particularly hope...
He'll be knocking on doors.
Yeah, he's out knocking on doors. Okay, but anyway, I wish him luck too in his absence. And what can I say? But thank you. You've been amazing colleagues. I've loved working with you all. And I'm not disappearing. And I understand that I may be an honorary alderman at some stage. So remember that. So thank you all very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Hyams. Councillor Bush, over to you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm not sure I can follow that, Councillor Hyams. It was really, really lovely. Sorry? I didn't mean mine. Not to try. I will never forget the pride I felt when I was elected for Harrow Road in 2005 as a councillor, and a councillor on Westminster City Council. I mean, it was an astonishing feeling. And it's always felt a bit like that. One of those things you couldn't quite believe had happened. So today is a sad day for me, being my last full council after 21 years. Not as long as you, Lord Mayor, but there we go. The council chamber, this space was not like this It was a real council chamber with wood-panelled walls. The seats were appallingly uncomfortable, but the room was elegant and gracious and very, very, you felt you were really in a council chamber. Then we moved to Porchester Hall, which probably best left unspoken about, but we did manage, we managed. And then, of course, we came back here, where the space was completely changed. So it's kind of weird saying goodbye in this room, which is not really a council place, in my view. It's not all been fun being a councillor. The caseload for Harrow Road has been very heavy because it's been, and still is, a ward with very high level of needs. And days gone by, they weren't always being met at all quickly and efficiently. I think it's a bit better now. I hope so. But it wasn't always easy. But whenever you did solve a problem, as all of you will know, you do feel at least you've achieved something. And there were projects of various kinds. I managed to get a smell coming up from the drains, which I picked up complaints about during my very first campaigning on my own account, and I managed to get that fixed. But originally, Thames Water, who were rather different then from how they are now, were very helpful. But they did say, you can't actually put a new drain over it because they might blow off into the trees. But anyway, they eventually found one that wouldn't. So it's all a lot better now, and people haven't complained to me since, which is a great relief. And then, of course, one of my proud things, achievements of sorts, is to having initiated All Sing, Harrow Road Community Choir, which is still going strong, and it's lovely. So if you ever get a chance to hear them, it's for ordinary people to sing. And I walked around the ward saying, do you sing? And they said, I haven't sung since primary school. Well, do give it a go, you know? And it's worked, and it's lovely. So much was done, but I always feel I could have done much more. Council committee work, I really enjoyed actually and valued doing that, especially as my time as the chair of planning most recently, which was a great honour to be thinking about buildings in Westminster. We didn't always get decisions that I approved of actually, but we did our very best, I think. In relation to the one about Beaumont Command, I remember it well. It was very difficult. I was quite new, I think, relatively, and it was very nerve-wracking to vote, to be a single person who voted against it. I thought it was inappropriate, too big, and the problems that you raised did weigh with me. And all these incredibly committed people were there. I voted against them, but I'm not sorry. I've worked actually constructively with opposition members down the years for various things, and particularly some very fruitful task groups under the late Alan Bradley on, this is a really important one that nobody knows about much, but road surfaces around junctions. That's where cyclists mostly fall off their bikes. And we got that shifted, and people understood that that's where you focus if you want to protect them. And there was one that Councillor Rowley chaired on sex work in Westminster. Very crucial matters. And we worked, all of us together, very well. And more recently, there was one on care leavers. And of course, my role as chair of the unique Westminster Faith Exchange, following in the footsteps of the former councillor Carolyn Keane, and now with Councillor Short on board as vice chair. It's important work, especially at this time. Then I had, as Councillor Hyams had, the astonishing privilege of being elected Lord Mayor and being the first Lord Mayor from this, or it wasn't this side, it was that side then, the opposition side of the council. Astonishing, unexpected honour. It was a great privilege. Please don't forget my stomp. There are still a few badges left, actually. The speak, it stands for speak to one more person. And we need to do that as often as we feel we can. I could sing it, I won't. And it brings me to the current Lord Mayor, our current Lord Mayor, to comment on and praise him for the astounding year he's in still. But he's worked, I think he's done more engagements than any Lord Mayor I've been aware of, but it's, well, if it isn't, it's certainly very near it. It's been amazing, and I think you've represented us incredibly well, and we thank you, Lord Mayor, for your year. It's a good year to bow out on, you hope. And others are also stepping down, as we've heard. On our side, Councillor Matt Noble, Councillor Ryan Jude, and hi, and Councillor James Small-Edwards. They have all made important and distinctive contributions to the Council and to the people of Westminster, and we thank them, as we've clapped everybody, but I want to just thank them individually and wish them well. Thanks are due to so many. None of us as councillors could do the work without the support of our own councillor colleagues. In my ward, I've been particularly grateful in this last period to Councillor Contia Albert and Councillor Regan Hook since I became ill over a year ago. They've carried such a burden from my work as well as their own complex range of duties. I'm more than I can express my gratitude to them. And then, of course, there are our council officers. And I would love to mention them all by name, but I can't. So I have to say, if everyone would accept that my thanks to our Chief Executive, Stuart Love, is to cover all the thanks I owe to all the councillors who've helped and supported me down these years. That's all I can do, but I mean it very sincerely. So finally, forgive me, dear opposition, kind of colleagues and whatever you are at different times, you must forgive me because I am so proud of what our leader, Councillor Hugg, and the Cabinet have accomplished since 2022, bringing such positive change to our city. And I'm sincerely hoping that our residents will vote to continue the work of making a fairer Westminster. So I trundle off into the sunset to do whatever little I can as an ordinary resident of Harrow Road Ward, with gratitude for these years, thanks to you all, and love and hope for our city of Westminster. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Louise, for your service and your commitment to Westminster. I wish you and all the members who are retiring well for the future. All the very best. Agenda item 1. Appointment of Relief Chair. As I may need to vacate the chair during the meeting, I propose that Councillor James Small-Edwards be chosen to take the chair as necessary. May I please have a seconder for my motion? Thank you. Councillor Iman Les has seconded my motion that Councillor James Small-Edwards chairs the meeting as necessary. Unless any member objects, the motion will be deemed to be agreed. If anybody has an objection, please say so now. Thank you. Councillor Small-Edwards, please join me on the dais. Agenda item 2, minutes from previous meeting. Unless any member wishes to raise a point of order relating to the accuracy of the minutes, I will consider that members are content that I sign the minutes of the last meeting. Please state now if you wish to raise a point of order. Thank you. The minutes are agreed. I will sign them. Thank you. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. It is necessary to declare any interest in relation to the issues on which there will be a vote. These items are set out in the list of speakers in the order paper. Members need to declare an interest in the items selected for debate if they are speaking in that debate. All members in attendance were asked to identify in advance of the meeting if they have an interest to declare. There is no need to declare an interest purely on the count of being a council tax or business rates payer, nor a need for any member to declare an interest in the members' allowance scheme item. If anyone has any other disclosable pecuniary interest or any other significant interest to declare, please say so now. Thank you. Agenda item 4. The report of the Cabinet is in 6 parts with recommendations on each. I propose, as in previous years, to allow one debate to encompass the budget and council tax item, and the remainder of the report before we vote on these. In accordance with statutory requirements, I intend to call formally recorded votes on the opposition party amendment and the recommendations of the Cabinet on the budget and council tax. With the agreement of both parties, the formally recorded votes will be undertaken by a show of hands. I will not ask the Chief Executive to call the name of each member of the Council. The names of those voting for, against or abstaining will be recorded in the minutes. We shall then move to vote on parts 2 to 6 of the report of the Cabinet. A list of those councillors who have been nominated to speak were tabled on the order paper sent to all earlier in the week. This list also sets out the order in which the votes will be taken at the end of the debate. All speeches are up to 5 minutes, except for the few on the list that may be up to 10 or 20 minutes. Can I ask that members keep to their allocated times as closely as possible? At 9:35, if the debate is still in progress, or at the end of the debate, if earlier, I will call the Leader of the Council to reply to the debate for up to 10 minutes. The division bell will then be rung to signify that the budget votes are to be taken by a formally recorded vote. All members must ensure that they are in the chamber in time for the vote. Once the division bell has finished ringing, no member will be allowed to enter the meeting until all the voting on the budget has concluded. Okay? I now call the Leader of the Council, Councillor Adam Hugg, to make his Leader's speech.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. This evening offers the opportunity to reflect on the past 4 years and the progress made in building a fairer Westminster, while looking ahead to how the budget before the Council tonight will further support what our residents need and deserve: security, opportunity, and a voice in the place they call home. 4 years ago, this administration was elected to represent the people of Westminster, not only on a commitment to deliver efficient services and keep council tax low, but on a pledge to deliver change and address the deep and long-standing inequalities that exist in our city. We've been clear from the start that this pledge had to be rooted in action so that our residents can see it in their homes, on their streets, in their well-being and in their wallets. And that's why, when we said we would help those most in need, we delivered over £26 million of investment into a cost of living fund to provide vital relief and support to those most affected by the cost of living crisis, helping tackle their problems for the long term too, in partnership with advice services and the voluntary sector. When we said no child should go hungry, we expanded universal free school meals to 14,000 children, so that every Westminster child in a local school gets a free school lunch from ages 3 to 14, and we're now working with the government to roll out free breakfast clubs too. We made our streets safer, installing 20 new CCTV cameras in the areas where residents told us they needed them most, funded a new police and council tasking team, or PACT, of 9 new police officers and 9 more specialist ASB city inspectors funded by the council to tackle antisocial behaviour and crime that most impacts our residents. We've strengthened our voluntary and community sector with more than £3.3 million of investment, because we know local organisations in the voluntary sector are at the beating heart of our communities. And we've launched community hubs across Westminster, places that offer connection, support and opportunity. From North Paddington to Pimlico, these places are helping to access services when they need them most. And we've already delivered over 350 additional social homes compared to the building plans left by the Conservatives, and invested significantly to improve our housing service, which last year received the top C1 rating for the Regulator of Social Housing, which gives us a strong foundation to continue our housing improvement journey to give our tenants and leaseholders a service that truly meets their needs. And across the economy and environment, our achievements tell a similar story: practical, visible improvements rooted in fairness, partnership and long-term thinking. And Lord Mayor, this is set against a still challenging financial backdrop. Over the next 3 years, the grant funding received by the council will reduce by around £75 million. But with strong financial stewardship, our innovative transformation programme is reinventing the way the council works. And our track record of delivering outstanding services that are value for money, we can keep on target with a string of major investments to make life better for our residents and businesses, whilst managing any short-term issues that arise thanks to our strong financial position. And of course, we're at the forefront of the national campaign to ensure that local council receive their fair share of the overnight visitor levy. Westminster welcomes millions of visitors every year, and it is only right that a significant proportion of the money raised here stays here. The council, together with our local businesses, believe there is a strong case for at least 75% retention given our unique circumstances. But we're also pleased to have helped unite both London councils and Central London Forward around a shared position that there should be at least 50% local retention, a position that many councils across the country also support, in part thanks to the work we've been doing to build a coalition. This approach recognises the substantial investment that we've already made in supporting the visitor and wider economy, from street cleansing to enforcement, as well as the innovative growth supporting projects we deliver, such as the new Regent Street plans. And even if the levy scheme were to be set at modest levels, such as retaining half of a 3% levy, this would generate £50 million a year for Westminster City Council, according to independent research. And the hard work is being done to make sure this council is as efficient and effective as possible. And it's for the purpose of delivering the best possible services whilst helping people come through challenging times. And this is why Westminster is committed to keeping council tax low. By freezing the main Westminster rate of council tax and only applying the adult social care precept, it means that the proposed increase in people's bills put forward in tonight's budget is the equivalent of an extra 20p a week for Band D properties, because a Labour council will do all it can to help people with rising bills. And let me be clear, Lord Mayor, we did not ask for flexibility in council tax settings that has been given to several inner London councils, and for the reasons that I've set out, we have no plans to use it. And Lord Mayor, this budget is an investment in our people, our places and our partnerships. We will invest in our residents by strengthening community safety, cracking down on antisocial behaviour, and by improving lighting in public places. By expanding cultural and creative opportunities for young people through programmes like the City Lions and expanded school and library partnerships. By investing £6.2 million in North Paddington to tackle social and health inequalities, funding more than 25 community projects, and ensuring every neighbourhood in Westminster has the investment it deserves. And that includes an investment of £3.8 million for improvements in and around Pimlico Station and Looper Street, which focus on creating a safer, more attractive environment and streets, supporting local businesses, revitalising community and cultural spaces, and making travel cleaner and greener through walking and better cycling routes. And this builds on £1.1 million support last year, making an overall package of £5 million being invested in the people of Pimlico. Investing in our residents also means delivering on our promise of genuinely affordable housing. Our new pipeline will invest £160 million in... Our new housing pipeline will invest an additional £160 million into 4 new sites across Westminster, ensuring that the council continues to provide homes for our residents that are high quality, safe, warm, secure and well maintained. And while our focus will be the delivery of new social rented homes, a variety of housing needs will be supported through a mix of tenures for key workers at more affordable rates than in the past, and including new specialist housing provision. Our £96 million investment in 291 Harrow Road is delivering 144 homes with 50% genuinely affordable housing, the majority of which is for social rent, including dedicated adult social care units. And obviously, Councillor Ormsby will talk more about the 4 new sites in the pipeline. Delivering good quality housing is not just a numbers game. We know that poor quality or unsuitable housing impacts on all our residents, their lives, from their health and well-being to the education of the children, on their household finances, and about the deepening of inequality. And the negative impacts of housing are too often most acutely seen in temporary accommodation. As demand for housing support has grown dramatically since the pandemic, the sourcing of suitable housing has become increasingly difficult. That's why we've invested heavily in our own temporary accommodation acquisition programme, with £282 million used to buy homes since 2022. And the budget before the Council this evening proposes an additional £170 million to continue this good work, because we recognise the need for the Council to own and long-term lease much more of its own temporary accommodation to ensure individuals and families have the best possible experience at an uncertain and unsettling time. And at the same time, these acquisitions are part of the diligent work we're doing to reduce the pressure that temporary accommodation places on the Council's budget. TA costs have been rising dramatically across the country, and particularly in London. But as a result of the investment and reforms to the service we've made, combined with a now reducing flow of new people into temporary accommodation, we're able to drive real savings across the 3-year MTFP before us tonight. And while we will help more residents through a safe front door, we want to get more of them with a foot on the career ladder. And I'm proud that we as a council have supported nearly 600 residents into work, including through apprenticeships and inclusive employment opportunities. From supporting small and medium-sized businesses to transform empty and unused West End sites through our Meanwhile On programme and its successor, Curate On, elsewhere in the city, to working with our Westminster Anchor Alliance, which brings together some of the city's biggest employers to help our residents access high-quality jobs and the training that they need. This Labour Council is grasping the amazing opportunities provided by hosting the heart of the UK's economy to ensure that the economic benefits are felt more equitably across the city. And while we ensure a fair share of the West End's prosperity is felt by all our residents, we're working hard to clean it up, cracking down on the American candy stores and their successors in terms of vape shops and wizard stores, and tackling the problems of pedicabs, e-scooters and dockless bikes. Our Westminster After Dark strategy sets out how we will work with our partners to provide a safe, vibrant and more diverse evening and nighttime environment with more cultural venues, late-night shops and community events. And the upcoming review of our licensing policy will better support a responsible hospitality and cultural offer whilst ensuring our residents are protected. On Oxford Street, we've been clear that the Mayor's approach is not one that Westminster had chosen. But we also know that delivering meaningful influence means being at the table, not merely shouting from the sidelines. So we're working pragmatically to ensure that local voices are heard, with a leader of Westminster's residents' groups now on the board of the Development Corporation as one of the council's 3 seats. And we're pushing the MDC to set up its own resident engagement functions as soon as possible. Our approach has secured major commitments from the Mayor, such as him funding the delivery of the scheme on the eastern half of the street, based on Westminster and NWEC's approach with the buses, and the retention of the Council's strategic development income from SIL and Section 106 generated on the street. All of which would be thrown away if the Council wasted £500,000 to take legal action that would be vanishingly unlikely to succeed. And even if it were to do so, at most it would only temporarily delay the Mayor from delivering on the plans that he's clearly set on pursuing and where he has the legal authority to do so. The Conservatives' approach would not only waste £500,000 now, but cost the Council tens of millions of pounds in the longer term, building on their track record of throwing money away on Oxford Street, as evidenced by the £34 million findings of the Cook report. The Westminster Conservatives' amendment is a recipe for endless squabbling with the GLA for short-term political gain, but to the long-term detriment of our residents, businesses and the Council's finances. And while Oxford Street may no longer be the Council's primary domain, we've come back with fresh energy to move forward with the innovative proposals for Regent Street that improve the pedestrian and resident experience.
Excuse me, Councillor Devenish, I've looked at the list of councillors who are speaking. You're not on it. If you wanted to speak at this meeting, you should have told your chief whip, and he would have put you down. So I want no more side chat from you, please. Councillor Hook.
Our proposals for Regent Street and improve the pedestrian and retail experience on the main street, help improve bus movements through the West End and create a new pedestrian zone in what was once Lower Regent Street. And our £34 million investment today will unlock significant funding from the Crown Estate to help create something that both residents and Londoners will be proud of. And Westminster is committing to building resilient local businesses and re-energising our high streets. Through focused investment in Pimlico, North Paddington and the Paddington-Bayswater corridor, we're supporting traders with practical shopfront improvement grants, public art projects to bring new life to our streets, and training that strengthens local enterprises. And just as importantly, we're putting communities in the lead, making sure that the placemaking reflects the visions of the people who live, work and trade there. And we're also committed to putting sustainable transport at the heart of the local economy and our communities, expanding zero-emission freight and modernising how we manage curbside use. Our sustainable transport strategy will guide our investment in the streets portfolio, and I'm particularly pleased to see our commitment to rolling out more side road zebra crossings, where Westminster has been a national pioneer, and our lane rental plans to start charging the utility companies for the roadworks they make on our busiest roads. Because environmental action isn't separate from fairness, it is fairness. It affects our health, our bills, our well-being, and affects the vulnerable most hard. That's why we're taking ambitious, evidence-based action to make Westminster cleaner, greener, and more climate resilient. Since 2018, council emissions have been cut by 34% and citywide by 17%, and the pace has quickened substantially since 2022. This Labour Council is committed to continued climate action as Kemi's Conservatives cut and run from their previous climate commitments. We've already retrofitted over 2,000 council homes, with funding secured for 4,000 more, delivering warmer homes and lower bills. Through our £6 million climate fund, schools, businesses and community groups are reducing emissions, and 128 businesses have signed our Sustainable City Charter, covering the bulk of our major landowners in the city. Over 2,600 EV charging points have been installed throughout the city, one of the highest installation rates of any council. We've rolled out emissions-based parking and adopted clean air routes. With £35 million invested in walking and active travel, we've delivered new cycle lanes, safer junctions, school streets and more than 300 bike hangers. And we're improving the everyday essentials too, with cleaner streets, zero-emission waste trucks and expanded food waste collections, whilst preparing for the future rollout of our new Cool Neighbourhood strategy to help deal with growing heat, and investment of £3.7 million in the Rainwise Sustainable Urban Drainage Programmes to reduce the risk of flooding in our neighbourhoods. A fairer environment means cleaner air, warmer homes, cleaner and greener streets, and climate action built into the decisions that we make. And underpinning everything, we will continue transforming how we work, building a council that is modern, connected, and rooted in the principles of both fairness and efficiency. Fairness is not just about the services we deliver, it's about how we deliver them. Today, 85% of residents say they're satisfied with how the council is running Westminster, and 3/4 believe it is efficient and well run. That confidence is welcome, but is not something we should ever take for granted as we strive each day to do better. And over the past few years, we've embedded residents' voice at the heart of our decision-making. We've established citizens' assemblies, including our Climate Citizens Assembly, and strengthened our residents' forums for tenants and leaseholders. And fairness must run through our own organisation too. We've reaffirmed our commitment to being an anti-racist council, achieved level 3 disability competent leader status, received a leader rating in the Home Office's modern slavery assessment tool to ensure that our supply chains and procurement practices reflect our values. And looking ahead, we will continue to embed the lived experience of our residents in the design of our services as we transform them for the future. We'll strengthen cyber security and digital resilience, particularly given the problems we've had due to the attack on KNC, which I know has caused significant issues for a number of our residents. And ensuring that residents can contact us in the way that works for them, online, on the phone, or face-to-face. And we're going to protect essential services while supporting those on lowest incomes. Because ultimately, a fairer council is not just one that delivers services efficiently. It's one that listens. And Lord Mayor, a fairer Westminster is about what happens when a council brings together residents, partners, businesses and the voluntary sector and gets them working towards the same purpose. The challenges facing our city are real. Rising costs, growing needs in a number of areas, climate pressures, inequality that cannot be ignored, all set against significant but manageable budgetary pressures. We will continue to make the case for Westminster and the role it plays in welcoming visitors to our capital, hosting events of national importance and supporting the national economy. And we will do this with fairness remaining at the heart of everything we do. And Lord Mayor, I commend this budget to the Council, and in doing so, I want to thank our residents and businesses for their ideas, for their involvement and their determination to help shape the future of our city, for our partners from the police, NHS and beyond, supporting our ambitions, and of course, our teams across the Council for their dedication and creativity in making real change happen day in, day out. The work ahead is significant, but together, we're ready for it. Together, we will continue to build a city that is greener, safer, healthier, and both more prosperous and inclusive. Together, let's keep building a better and fairer Westminster.
Thank you, Councillor Hugg. I now call Councillor Paul Swaddle to speak.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. 64 days. That's all that stands between Westminster residents and the chance to pass their verdict on this failing administration. Because tonight, Labour have brought forward a budget of smoke and mirrors, a pay nothing now, pay a lot later scam that insults the intelligence of every person in this city. Residents deserve to know where their money is going, what it is delivering, what is not working, and tonight I intend to tell them. It took Labour 58 years to win a majority on this council, but it just took them 10 months to vote themselves a pay rise of 45%. And since then, the trail of failures has been relentless. Crime is rising, streets are dirtier, rough sleeping is at record levels. Oxford Street has been surrendered to Sadiq Khan without any regard for residents' concerns. £27 million of residents' money wasted because of a failed housing contractor that Labour appointed without due diligence. And now they're raiding £19 million of reserves to fund a pre-election council tax freeze. A cynical gimmick that stores up pain for years to come. This is not a fairer Westminster. This is same old Labour, and people continue to pay the price. Let us dwell on that £27 million clean-up cost, because Labour has done everything in its power to make sure we don't. Within their first 6 months in office, they awarded a major housing contract to Jeffrey Osborne Limited, a contractor showing every warning sign of imminent financial collapse. Accounts not filed on time, civil engineering arms sold off just to break even, the alarm bells were ringing. The Labour Council ignored them. Labour could have requested the briefing notes from officers that warned that the risks of going under. They could have paused the contract award, asked more questions, or chosen a different contractor. Instead, they rushed in, failed to do proper due diligence, and signed on the dotted line, leaving residents to pick up the cleaning bill for their incompetence. When Peter Duff, who joined Jeffrey Osborne as their group financial director in September 22, said, and I quote, "There were problems when I joined. There were 2 or 3 very difficult contracts, and brutally, they hadn't dealt with COVID very well." He admitted the business needed salvaging. Not once did he blame the previous government, unlike the attempts of those opposite. But did we see an apology, accountability, consequences? No. When Councillor Fisher pressed them on due diligence and overview and scrutiny, the Labour chair shut it down. The questioning was, and I quote, too forensic. Too forensic. And the Audit and Performance Committee, a different Labour councillor called it nitpicking. One went on Twitter to call the whole scandal a distraction. And another called it unfortunate. Unfortunate? That's an overflowing bin that Labour hasn't failed to empty. That's unfortunate, not an act of reckless financial negligence. No apology, no shame, no consequences. The culture of unaccountability has poisoned this administration from day one. Westminster residents deserve so much better than this. And the leader of the Labour Council? Silent. No apology, no leadership. He let 27 million walk out the door on his watch, hiding behind photo opportunities, as he and his cabinet members role play with hard hats and trowels. This is not student union politics. This is Westminster City Council, and it's time for serious leadership. Let us not forget the Labour 22 manifesto promise, an independent financial review board to scrutinise council spending. Whatever happened to that? quietly dropped another broken promise, same old Labour. And now this budget. Westminster are raiding 19 million of reserves, taxpayers' money set aside for genuine emergencies, to create the illusion of low council tax. This is nothing more than a pre-election gimmick. 19 million is the equivalent of a 25% council tax rise in and of itself. They are spending your emergency fund to pretend they are being kind to you, while loading the pain onto years 2, 3 and 4, conveniently after the election. This council's own officers said it plainly, and I quote, "It is clear that the one-off use of reserves will not be able to solve the financial challenge faced by this council going forward." But the harsh reality is council tax is projected to rise by up to 75% over the next 4 years. Hidden in the government's so-called fairer funding review is an extraordinary stealth tax, a flat £150 additional increase per year on top of a 5% council tax rise in both 2027 and 28-29, and a £90 million black hole in our finances. This is not fairer funding. It's a con, and this council's Labour leader is the con artist. Hear, hear. Residents are being asked to foot the bill for pet projects and wasteful spending that has nothing to do with their priorities. 8.6 million in professional fees for Lisson Grove, including 1.2 million extra on consultants after Labour delayed the scheme, redesigning it to meet their own retrofit first policy. The Seymour Leisure Centre delayed and over budget. Money thrown at yoga classes, knitting groups and elaborate art displays. Crime is up, street standards are down, and all while Labour play fast and loose with taxpayers' money. The residents are being asked to pay more while Labour fails to deliver basic value for money. This is not a fairer Westminster, it's a dereliction of duty. The financial costs of Labour's failure is only half the story. Residents have told me they no longer feel safe in their own city. They don't see a fairer Westminster, they see a wild Westminster. The Labour mayor has overseen cuts to the Met by 1,700 officers, and Westminster Labour has stood idly by and let it happen. Police counters shut, officers leaving in droves, parks police dismantled, dedicated school officers removed. The Met hollowed out neighbourhood by neighbourhood, while this administration says nothing and does nothing. A failing council that does not listen to local people, a failing mayor who is allowing crime to spiral, a failing government too distracted by its own scandals and U-turns to govern. And at the bottom of that chain, as always under same old Labour, Westminster residents who are paying the price. The consequences are on every street corner. Since Labour took office in 22, total crimes are up, reaching almost 90,000 last year, making Westminster the worst performing borough in the country for crime. Phone snatching, up. Robbery, up. Shoplifting, up. Criminal damage, up. This is the reality of life under Westminster Labour. Drug dealing in broad daylight outside Westminster Cathedral, tents on Park Lane under the Westway for months, antisocial behaviour rampant and unchallenged, shoplifting effectively decriminalised. Meanwhile, Labour promised an enforcement crackdown on dockless bikes. Lord Mayor, I seem to remember you being telling people to be quiet earlier.
There's back chat on both sides.
Meanwhile, Labour promised an enforcement crackdown on dockless bikes with promises of over £1 million in fine revenue. The results, less than £5,000 in fines and bikes still littering our streets, blocking pavements and dumped without consequence. Compared to the Conservative-run Kensington and Chelsea, over 1,300 bikes seized and over £100,000 in fines. Yeah. Tonight we bring forward an amendment to put more uniformed patrols on our streets, self-funded through fines and delivering real consequences for those who break the rules, including impounding bikes if operators fail to act. Our streets tell the same story. Residents write to me regularly about overflowing bins, missed collections, dog fouling and streets that feel neglected and unloved. One Church Street resident wrote to me recently about persistent dog fouling. His ward councillors had not responded in weeks. I dealt with it within minutes. He noted, and I quote, "The ward councillors remained unresponsive to constituents' concerns." Shameful. That is the difference between an administration that listens and one that doesn't. Much of this is fueled by illegal short-term lets, strangers rotating in and out of buildings, noise at all hours, families driven out as landlords chase short-term profit. The Labour government's proposed registration scheme is woefully watered down and inadequate. A Conservative administration will crack down on illegal short-term lets with real enforcement, fight for a proper registration scheme and genuine consequences for those who flout the rules. Labour Westminster also records the highest number of rough sleepers in the UK. We will offer real solutions, support vulnerable people and tackle the organised exploitation that sits behind some street homelessness. It's time for a spring clean in Westminster. If elected in May, I will appoint a cabinet member for enforcement to deliver tough monitoring, faster penalties and make sure breaches of rules and regulations are backed by real consequences. A Conservative council will back safe streets and tackle crime and ASB in Westminster head on. Conservatives will always put local people first. On Oxford Street, the betrayal is stark. Westminster had its own plans, fully costed, shovel-ready, supported by local residents, businesses and councillors. Yes, you took on our scheme. Absolutely.
Excuse me. Look,
No heckling.
Councillor Boothroyd, you're speaking next. Okay? Whatever you have to say, you speak it next, okay?
Scrapped because the Mayor of London does not take this administration seriously. Last autumn, they surrendered Oxford Street, our local high street, to a mayor who cares more about his legacy than the needs of local people. Labour classified it as a minor decision to block any call-in, silence scrutiny and shut out residents. Now, the mayor refuses to release postcode-level data that would show exactly how people feel. So we went to residents directly, because we listen where Labour doesn't. Nearly 80% of residents in our referendum said they do not believe pedestrianisation will work. The mayor wants to remove vital bus routes, threaten accessibility for the less mobile residents, and displace traffic onto surrounding streets with no credible plan for managing it. He just doesn't care. There is nothing in this budget which sets out how Westminster Council will recoup the 20 million already invested in works on Oxford Street, and that money has simply been written off and Labour won't say a word about it. Tonight, we are bringing forward an amendment to establish a legal fighting fund to challenge this reckless vanity project. To the party opposite, back this amendment. If you don't, every person in Westminster will know that the Labour Party puts party loyalty before local people. This Labour-led council has splashed millions on controversial cycle lanes and new floating bus stops that caused chaos for disabled people. These ideological schemes present serious safety risks to our most vulnerable residents, pushed through without listening to the actual road users. We commit to listening to residents on transport plans, and we will review the Bayswater Road and other new cycle lane schemes. We will put people before party. Yeah. Labour came to office promising a social housing revolution. Tonight they're announcing a new wave of housing projects worth 160 million. And no doubt Councillor Hugg will be back with his hard hat for the cameras. We saw it only yesterday at Westmead, turning up to cut another ribbon on another Conservative scheme and calling it a revolution.
Thank you, Rachel.
So while Labour scrambles for photo shoots, the crisis hiding in plain sight is key worker housing. In 2025, the number of intermediate homes delivered in Westminster was zero. Zero. Teachers, nurses, young professionals, the people that make this city work, forced out of Westminster because they cannot afford to stay and do not qualify for social housing. And the Labour government is making it worse. The family homes tax threatens up to 17,000 Band H homes in Westminster, hitting residents, pensioners and families who've worked hard to put down roots here. A politics of envy dressed up as fairness. Westminster Labour has stood by while its own government lines up local families for punishment. A Conservative-led administration will run Westminster differently. We will transparently overhaul the housing allocation scheme, prioritise key worker housing, and make Westminster a place where people who serve our community can afford to live in it. We'll ensure that properties are prioritised for people who work and contribute to our city, and we will stand up for local families targeted by Labour's family home tax. The delayed announcement on Pimlico district heating undertaking is just another pre-election trick. Labour are planning post-May to install a system that could cost leaseholders over £60,000 per flat, while tenants pay through their service charges, despite the alternative options championed by Councillor Pitford. For those residents, this election is a referendum on their heating system. We stand up for a pragmatic, sensible and affordable approach. And for those on council estates, from the Hallfield to Churchill Gardens and beyond, we will introduce an independent advice service so residents can challenge council decisions, real compassion and conservatism in action.
More money for lawyers.
The people of Westminster do not have to accept this. They do not have to accept reckless waste, broken promises, spiralling crime, surrendering streets without representation and a budget designed to deceive. There is an alternative built around the real concerns of residents raised with practical solutions. If Westminster Conservatives are elected in May, we will deliver safe streets, a clean city, value for money and transport for all, rooted in real caring conservatism that listens to people. We will deliver the safe streets Westminster deserves, with a cabinet member for enforcement, tough penalties and real consequences. We will champion neighbourhood policing and stand up to the mayor's policing cuts. We will get the basics right for clean city, reliable waste collection, a crackdown on illegal short-term lets, and real support for rough sleepers instead of warm words with little action. We will deliver real value for money, proper due diligence on every contract, real accountability and transparency so residents always know where their money is going. No more blank cheques, no more Jeffrey Osbornes. And we will fight for Westminster, standing up for residents on West Oxford Street, listening before bulldozing ahead on ideological grounds, and making Westminster sure Westminster always has a seat at the table. 64 days, Lord Mayor. 64 days until the people of Westminster have their say on 4 years of broken promises and declining standards. Westminster needs a council that will listen, a council that will act in their interest, a council that treats every pound of taxpayers' money with respect. And that is what a Conservative-led council will deliver. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Swaddle. I call Councillor David Boothroyd.
Lord Mayor, I commend to the Council a budget to keep our streets clean, fight crime and ASB, help get more people into good jobs and bring life back to our high streets. It is a budget on the side of the people of Westminster and puts local places and communities at the heart of what we are doing. I'd like to thank Rickin and Lindsay and Gerald and all the officers for their work on this budget. Not only did they deliver a budget through the much delayed fair funding review, but also at a crucial stage key systems had to close due to the cyber attack and key officers needed to work to support the investigation and recovery. But thanks to the cybersecurity measures that we took, they didn't get into any Westminster systems when they attacked us, but the RBKC access severely affected us. And I want to start by saying and reassuring the Council and the people of Westminster that we have learned and we will come out of this with stronger cybersecurity. Some moves like the Zero Trust Network were already being installed before November. Others have already happened, like a firewall between Westminster and RBKC systems, but we will need further investment. Well, in addition to officers, I must thank all the Cabinet members for working so collaboratively on this budget, and also Councillor Jason Williams and all members of the Budget Scrutiny Task Group for their hard work in scrutinising the proposals, and that's absolutely across the chamber. Talking about that, now this time last year, I did note that it was my third budget and also my third different shadow finance spokesperson. So today, for my fourth budget, I am have the happy duty to welcome the fourth shadow finance spokesperson, but one who did in fact have 3 years of experience of chairing budget scrutiny. And last year, Councillor Fisher told us all that the budget that we are presented with today puts us on a robust footing, and he commended it to the Council. Well, given this one is on substantially the same lines, with the main difference being that we have found substantial extra efficiencies, I'm sure he will say exactly the same thing. After all, they don't call him Mr. Consistency for nothing. We have certainly been consistent. We have certainly been consistent in moving this council forwards towards a fairer Westminster. In this budget, we provide further funding to tackle the cost of living crisis, back a full review of the city plan to deliver the built environment that the people of Westminster need, and fund mental health care beds following the closure of the Gordon Hospital. This budget also confirms funding for the CCTV network, which we set up and expanded after the Conservatives closed it all down, and supports the community hubs across the city, which have been so much welcomed by residents. This budget also shows the future of place-based delivery in the city. The North Paddington programme is our commitment to an area all previous Conservative administrations neglected, and we're providing another 6.2 million there to tackle social and health inequalities and funding community projects. But it was also a pilot to show what we could do elsewhere. We also have 8 million to support high streets across Paddington and Bayswater, and we're investing 3.8 million around Pimlico Station and Lupus Street to improve public realm, modernise shop fronts and develop a public art programme. All this investment is only possible because we have been rigorous in finding economies and efficiencies in the council's spending. Investing in reorganising the homelessness service to improve it following insourcing will save money. We are making contract efficiencies on adult social care, and additional prevention work will help people remain independent and save money. Insourcing the IT support desk improves the service and saves money. Introducing and increasing food waste recycling is better for the environment and saves money on waste disposal. Alongside saving money, we are finding additional income from sources like investment property, increased use of our contractors for commercial waste, and identifying second homes which should be paying a premium on council tax, because second homes are a luxury in a housing crisis. That crisis continues to siphon off a totally unacceptable level of council resources to provide temporary accommodation. But at last, bold measures this administration has been taking are turning the tide, including the acquisition programme. That programme gets a further boost in this year's capital strategy, but we still have room in the capital strategy to invest in the city. Building on an impressive record of delivery, which means that we are likely to spend 374 million on general fund capital schemes this year, which is the highest level of spend in recent years and shows that we are not letting projects slide. Highlights from the capital budget include 174 million to deliver a much-needed new community health and wellbeing hub on Lisson Grove, and alongside 300 new homes, 96 million for new social rent, affordable and specialist adult care homes at 291 Harrow Road, and 28 million to bring forward projects for new homes on more sites across the city. Westminster Labour is committed as never before to fairer housing, secure tenancies and affordable rents. And if a contractor the Conservatives engage fails, we will make sure those homes are completed. That is not waste. It is fair to say the background to this budget is not the one that we would have chosen because of the outcome of the Fair Funding Review late last year. We continue to dispute the review has succeeded in directing funding to deprived areas, and we will continue to demand proper funding. The work goes on, the cause endures, etc. But in setting the financial plan for this council, everyone who seeks to run this council must be clear how they will make sure the level of resources available to the council and its spending are in balance, and how this balance is sustainable in the long term. And I did not hear any of that from Councillor Swaddle. I don't know if I'll hear it from Councillor Fisher. This will be a big issue for Westminster voters on the 7th of May. And how do I know they will decide Westminster Labour are the only party with a plan to protect and improve services while keeping council tax low? Well, simple in-group, out-group psychology, but also, for one thing, I've also checked, and neither opposition party has explained how they will do it. Westminster Labour's plan for long-term sustainable finances links to the whole council transformation programme we have already embarked on. This programme builds on complex issues that we discovered when the council went through the zero-based budget review that we had in our manifesto, and also learnings from other councils, as through the Critical Friends Board, which has met. The transformation programme needs a small level of investment in the short term in order to deliver substantial recurring baseline savings in future years. I don't know, the Conservatives don't seem to have picked up on it or mentioned it. We're also going to work with the GLA and government to design a scheme for an overnight visitor levy which takes account of the substantial cost to this council of providing services to those staying only temporarily. Even a small rate would be enough to transform our finances. We do not know how much this levy is going to raise. We do know that the Conservative Party thinks it should raise nothing because they're denouncing a holiday tax. So a Conservative-run council might not even have the transformation programme and certainly would not get that income. A Conservative council would end up slashing services and jacking up the council tax. But because Westminster Labour has a long-term plan, it is reasonable for one exceptional financial year to transfer some funds from reserves. This was what we were always planning to do. In the year the fair funding review finally happened, the reserves had been built up precisely for that purpose. Even after this transfer, Westminster will have earmarked reserves in general fund balances, which is higher than every other London borough. If any councillor or resident is in any way worried about using reserves, please read carefully Section 5 of the Section 25 report, Appendix 8 to the Council papers. The Conservatives are clearly on board. They are not seeking to reduce the call on reserves one bit. I have to say I like the Conservative group budget amendment. Not a lot, but I liked it because those unidentified staff efficiencies are magic. And I'm sure it is pure coincidence that now Councillor Fisher is the opposition finance spokesperson. This budget amendment is all about giving more money to lawyers. Just for free, can he identify any error of law or process from the Mayor over Oxford Street? I'm planning a trip to Wednesbury next weekend, so you can phone me there. Labour has a long-term plan which answers the challenge of the funding review with council transformation and additional income from a visitor levy. So we are able to set a council tax level which freezes the main part of council tax. We conclude this Labour administration with council tax lower in real terms than the level we inherited. We have had only 4 short years. The Conservatives had 6 decades. I commend this budget, delivering improved services, building more affordable homes, making further progress towards a fairer Westminster with low tax. Let's get on with the job because, Lord Mayor, we get things done.
Thank you. I'm going to call Councillor Paul Fisher, but I did hear all that heckling, and I did let it go. Just be aware of that. Councillor Paul Fisher.
I look forward to it, Lord Mayor. I look forward to it. There was a time when all 54 councillors that make up this body were not part of local government. Maybe even didn't know it really existed. There was a time where we were simply residents. And we have to ask ourselves every single year, what would we have demanded as a bare minimum from our local authorities, as the residents of Westminster now demand from their local authority? And I think there are at least 2 things that people demand from their council. Firstly, competence, and secondly, transparency. Competence because we have the stewardship, the role of stewardship when it comes to the money of the people and residents of Westminster, that they entrust the services in this city council to us to deliver value for money every year, year in, year out. And transparency because ultimately residents want to know the truth. They want to be told what's coming down the road. They don't want to be gaslighted. They don't want to be sold a fairy tale. And on those 2 measures, those 2 basic measures, I would suggest that this budget completely and utterly fails. Yeah. Now, I just want everyone in the room, every single person in this room, to ask themselves quietly whether this Labour administration would be freezing council tax in a year that was not an election year. We all know the answer to that question. We all know the answer to that question. That's why the other side is so exercised right now, because they know how transparent, how naked this political opportunism really is. We all know it. Lord Mayor, everybody in this chamber has experienced enough to know what the Labour administration is doing. And we can prove it by reference to last year, when the Labour administration, fairly in my view, said, because this side agreed at the time, that council tax needed to rise because there were threats coming down the road and risks that we needed to face. There were challenges that were coming from the Fairer Funding Review that we needed to face. Indeed, the threat that was posed by Cabinet members last year was that if council tax didn't rise, then the consequences in the Fairer Funding Review in subsequent years would be even worse for the city. What has changed over the past 12 months, I'll tell you. We're now in 2026. This Labour administration is at the end of its tether, and it is facing an election that it knows is going to be challenging. And so internally, the Labour group opposite will of course been engaged in discussions around this issue, and they will have decided that it would not have been possible in an election year to go to the voting public having raised council tax. As I say, this is a nakedly political budget. It is an election budget. And actually, you know what? There are many people in this room who would say, Councillor Fisher, come on. The cynical people in this room might say, Councillor Fisher, come on, be sensible. This is an election year. This is what happens in local authorities up and down the country. And so we're not going to be raising council tax in an election year. But the problem for the Labour group is that this year is exceptional, I'm afraid, Councillor Boothroyd, because the risks that are identified down the road, the risks that are facing this city on the horizon, are unprecedented. Let me just refer you, I see Councillor Boothroyd fairly, actually. Councillor Boothroyd fairly. It took a long time for us to get to that point on the front bench on the other side, but Councillor Boothroyd fairly recognised Councillor Williams' work. And I want to say thank you and to give my apologies to Councillor Williams. Thank you for taking over the role, and apologies that I added to your workload because of decisions I took last April. But I hope that members have read the Budget Scrutiny report. I'm sure you've read it in detail. There are people even shaking their heads over there, unfortunately. Well, let me tell you, I have, because I think it's really important that we do so. Let me tell you about the risks that are facing this city on the horizon and why it's so reckless that this administration is taking the decisions that it is. Firstly, temporary accommodation, a consistent risk for this council over the past 4 years. It is not going away. While the rate of increase in the demand may reduce in coming years, the demand will increase and it will continue to rise. And Councillor Williams quite rightly says that there is still a risk of substantial unplanned expenditure if demand rises significantly before the full programme of work has been undertaken, and use of expensive nightly temporary accommodation rises. So that's one risk that needs to be taken into account when budgeting this year. Adult social care. The BSTG noted with concern that the increasing cost of care for adults poses a significant risk to the council's budget. Demand for services continues to grow as there's not only increasing complexity of care needs, but also an ageing population. None of this has been referred to in the fairy tale speeches of my former colleagues earlier today. Children's services. Similar problems on the horizon. The price of children's care presents a significant risk to the council's budget as demand for services continues to rise. And then there's a whole heading, rightly, on uncertainty. Now, this was written before the events at the weekend. Market volatility, interest rate changes and inflation present significant risks as they directly affect both income and expenditure levels. Then there's the budget gap, which of course we all know about. Councillor Swaddle has dealt with at length. Your government, your Labour government, is assuming you are going to have to raise council tax by 75% over the next 4 years. It does, because it's creating a black hole that you need to fill. But you have decided to abdicate responsibility in this financial year. And then there's a whole section on your over-reliance on external funding and grants. Now, taking all of those risks into account, which I haven't heard anything on from the Cabinet members this evening, do you think it's wise both to refuse to raise council tax in this year, and secondly, to raid our reserves by the sum of £19 million? But it's worse than that. It's worse than that, because you're providing commitments to the people of Westminster that you must know. You don't know whether you can keep. You promised last week in a press release, you promised that you had no plans to make full use of the government's flexibility on the 5% threshold. You have said that in a public document. You must know that you have to consider the lie of the land after the election in May of this year. Now, let's just turn on. It's all right. Look. I can deal. Look, I can deal with these criticisms from the other side. I have to say, and it's time to say it, because I make no guarantees whether I'll be here on the 8th of May. That's a question for the people of the West End. But nothing that I do in this council chamber is personal. It is always about public administration. And I remain respectful to every single one of you who give your time and commitment to the people of Westminster. I just disagree with your politics. Now, just on this question of whether or not raiding the reserves is appropriate, let's look at what your own finance officer says. Because this is another difference, Councillor Boothroyd. This was not said last year by the Section 151 officer, because he commented on the use of reserves. He says, effectively, this use of reserves is an ongoing structural deficit which will grow in the later years as the grant reductions increase further. So action to identify and deliver further savings will be required. He goes on to say, Councillor Boothroyd, just listen and take accountability. The council will have some very significant decisions to consider in the coming period on how to deal with this. Therefore, raising council tax beyond the normal 5% threshold will need to be a serious consideration for members. That is not what you are communicating to the people of Westminster. And it's because you are grasping to retain control of this council in the coming election. There is an alternative. The Conservative administration that's in waiting, if the people of Westminster will it, will provide prudence over electoral convenience, sound management over ideology. And if the people of Westminster will it, we are ready, willing and able to fix the City of Westminster and put it back on track, not just for the next 4 years, but for the long term. Hear, hear.
Councillor Councillor Albert.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you. I'll try and put us back on track. And thank you to the officers who have worked so hard to bring this budget together, particularly those delivering the North Paddington programme and colleagues across communities, customer services, digital and active Westminster. These are services I'm proud to lead as Cabinet Member for Communities. Tonight's budget presents political choices. Do you believe in prevention, or do you believe in waiting for crisis? Do you believe in investing in communities or stripping them back? And do you govern seriously or say what sounds good? This Labour administration has chosen to govern seriously. Over the past 4 years, we have worked hand in hand with residents to build a fairer Westminster through delivering what they have asked for. We have protected and strengthened our sports and leisure offer through our renewed contract with Everyone Active. We have invested in modernised gyms, accessible equipment, improved facilities, and greater energy efficiency at Queen Mother, Paddington Recreation Ground, and Little Venice. And for the first time, we offered free half-term swimming and for parents, carers, and children. because access to health and well-being should be in easy reach for people who need it most. This is practical and fair. We now have 6 community hubs across Westminster, real physical spaces where residents can access support, build skills, volunteer and connect with neighbours. Brunel and Lylestone hubs are proving essential, and next week Rampayne Street in the south of the borough will open. These hubs are prevention in action. Our voluntary and community sector partners reduce isolation, prevent crises, and save public money by stopping problems escalating. We know that 80% of health outcomes are shaped by wider determinants like housing, employment, and opportunity. Under the previous Conservative administration, nearly all voluntary sector grant funding was cut and dismissed as vanity projects. In their budget amendments, they have again proposed scaling back community investment. Shame.
Shame. Shame.
That tells you everything about their priorities. We believe community organisations are not optional extras, they are essential infrastructure. Through our Community Priorities Programme funding, shaped directly by residents, we are funding youth provision, digital inclusion, food need, business mentoring, and well-being programmes. These are among some of the opportunities we have funded to make residents' lives better. In North Paddington, we back up that commitment with capital investment, supporting organisations like Paddington Arts, Grand Junction, and the Floating Classrooms, modernising playgrounds and improving accessibility. We have transformed Westbourne Green and Queen's Park Canalside and supported projects like Maida Hill Market's transformation. Neighbourhoods overlooked by the Conservatives when they ran this council. We have made this city fairer. Fairness and environmental responsibility go hand in hand. We have invested in local neighbourhoods so residents can access services closer to home and are embedding sustainability into regeneration and public realm improvements. Serious climate action is not about grandstanding or promising the impossible. It's about doing the hard work of delivering, investing in active communities and designing services that are sustainable for the long term. Some will offer easy answers and wish lists, but governing means finding the right balance. It means financial realism and turning ambition into tangible action. It's easy to promise the world. It's hard to run a council. We choose to run a council properly. A fairer Westminster also means a council that works around people. Technology should make people's lives easier. We have transformed our reported system, cutting reporting times in half. We have improved digital services in housing while protecting face-to-face and phone routes so no one is excluded. We have integrated systems. Now residents do not repeat their story. Strengthen the front line by introducing connectors and the customer advocacy team. And we have modernized, and as we modernize, we are using AI responsibly to improve service routing and identify unmet needs earlier. Our goal is no wrong front door. Whether a resident walks into a hub, calls us, or goes online, they get the right support. Alongside this, we're expanding access to training and upskilling through our hubs and partners, because fairness means ensuring residents can access the opportunities our city creates. This budget delivers efficiency, but not at the expense of prevention, not at the expense of communities, and never at the expense of fairness. You can cut community investment and call it savings, leading to inequity and people suffering. You can also make promises without plans, or you can do the responsible work of running the council well. This Labour administration chooses responsibility. We choose delivery, and we choose to continue building a fairer Westminster. I am pleased to support this budget. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Albert. I now call Councillor Sarah Hassan.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I'm really pleased to be here tonight as the new Cabinet Member for Climate, Ecology, Culture and Air Quality. And before I begin, I'd like to thank Councillor Ryan Jude for all of his efforts to push the Council towards its ambitious net zero targets, to catalyse innovation and to promote access to culture for everyone in the city during his term. It's been a huge privilege to have taken the reins on a portfolio that has delivered so many good things for the residents, businesses and communities in Westminster over the past 4 years. Our record on climate action has gone from being lacklustre to leading, and we're now consistently ranked among the top councils in the country. We've done this by putting our money where our mouth is, by investing £20 million into our corporate property estate to cut emissions, planting hundreds of trees across the city, establishing the first Climate Citizens Assembly, and declaring an ecological emergency, and making our award-winning parks, green spaces even more hospitable to local biodiversity. We're enabling hundreds of local people and organisations to start their own environmental projects through our Greening Westminster Fund. All of this has resulted in a huge drop in our emissions. In fact, since 2022, when we took over, we've reduced emissions by 27%, compared to 7% under the opposition party. And in addition to that, we're making homes warmer, greener, and cheaper to heat. And in the last few weeks alone, we've reached the milestone of more than 2,000 social homes benefiting from energy-saving retrofits. In the culture space, we're bringing world-class culture to Westminster to everyone, not just those from a certain background. With the Theatre for Every Child programme delivered in collaboration with the Society of London Theatre, almost 1,000 young people who have been able to attend a range of West End shows, experiencing the magic of theatre, some for the very first time. And with our Culture and Community Grants programme, we brought legendary institutions to local people. And all of this is even before I mention how we protected our incredible library provision, or how we've made the country's leading investment into a suite of new public toilets across the city, the newest of which opened just yesterday in Piccadilly Circus. Over the past 4 years, we've worked hard to plant seeds of sustainable growth across the city, and this budget allows us to do even more. Our brand new cultural strategy has just been published after much consultation with our fantastic cultural partners across the city. It details how we will continue to break down barriers to culture, grow a creative economy, and further embed culture at the heart of all of our place-shaping schemes. We know that our net zero targets are incredibly ambitious, so we're continuing to take a cross-council approach to delivery, working hard to embed outcomes across the whole organisation. Lord Mayor, I'm proud to stand here tonight to present a budget that will allow us to invest more in the people and places that make Westminster such an incredible place to live, work and visit. I look forward to getting to work on behalf of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hassan. I call Councillor Tim Mitchell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. On behalf of all of us, I pay tribute to the work of Frances Martin and her team in the Environment and Communities Directorate, who manage so many of the Council's key services. In the coming year, the Directorate is targeting a £14.1 million worth of new savings, forming a wider part of a £20.41 million saving programme over the next 3 years of the Council's new medium-term financial plan. This is in addition to the £12.54 million saving that the Directorate is planning to deliver in the existing plan period ending 27-28. And if, and it is a big if, all these savings are delivered, then the Directorate will have a net nil revenue budget by 2029. This is a big ask of the officer team, especially given the economic uncertainties locally, nationally, and indeed, as we've seen from this weekend, internationally. So, looking at the details, a number of core savings for the Environment Communities Directorate rely on initiatives that either do not exist yet, lack a business case, or require multi-year preparation. For example, the lane rental charging scheme for street works, which my colleagues and I very much welcome in principle, is expected to generate £1 million in 28-29. But based on Camden's experience, it has taken an 18-month to 2-year period to lead in, and we haven't even started the work yet. The budget documents explicitly acknowledge that upfront staffing and system costs are still undefined and the business case still needs to be worked up. A large proportion of the savings elsewhere for the department, pay to park, commercial waste, PCN enforcement, are not new initiatives, but paper adjustments, banking 1-year increases as if they're guaranteed ongoing revenue streams, whatever the economic circumstances in the future. For example, pay to park is anticipating a 500k uplift with no evidence that this is sustainable in future years. Commercial waste income are assuming increases which are based on the council maintaining its market share in a highly competitive environment despite no plan to address market volatility. And the additional penalty charge income is justified only by the 25-26 spike, which in itself came from one-off London councils, rather than mayors, PCN increase rather than operational improvements. These are all windfall gains. In other cases, consultation and legislative requirements make the timetable unrealistic or the likelihood of the savings materialising very questionable. For example, controlled parking zones, there is an anticipated £1.5 million from adjusting the times to include evenings or weekends, but there's no guarantee that this will take place. Indeed, because there's been no consultation, we don't know whether residents will actually support these changes. Market fees and other changes to market charges, there's an anticipated income of £500,000 from hikes in market fees because, I quote, current market fees are significantly below benchmark levels across London, with Hammersmith charging 3 times what Westminster does for certain licences. While some of our street markets flourish, others struggle, and so is an increase of income realistic? Lord Mayor, many of these savings proposals are aspirations, not firm deliverables. In summary, many of these savings are over-optimistic, have potentially unsound assumptions, are dependent on external factors, untested assumptions, and unrealistic timelines. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. And I call Councillor Ed Pitt-Ford.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. To briefly respond to Councillor Hugg, you talk of £5 million for Pimlico, which we are grateful for, but your PDHU proposals would rip out £100 million from the local economy. You talk of emissions-based parking charges reducing emissions, but your 1,800% increase for EV parking caused the number of EVs parking Westminster to go down, whilst nationally sales of new EVs went up 20%. I want to focus, though, on one of the standout lines in this budget, £88.8 million from the housing revenue account to replace the Pimlico district heating undertaking. An average of over £50,000 per home for new heating cannot be the right solution, regardless of who is paying for it. People will never make back the additional cost through reduced bills. But let us consider what £88.8 million on PDHU does to the housing revenue account. Maximum rent increases are set nationally, and so this means that almost £90 million will be displaced from budgets. Every pound spent on PDHU is a pound we don't have to spend on repairs, maintenance, or on building new homes. Labour's plan is an imprudent use of public funds, with pipework forecast to cost over £100 million. Retrofitting district heating into a dense urban area with listed estates is not innovation, it's financial self-harm. After 4 years of work, we still have not seen detailed electrical infrastructure costs to accommodate electric heating. Suggestions of using batteries, such as those used at Heathrow, to avoid upgrade costs have been ignored. When realistic costs and existing smart tariffs are properly modelled, individual electric solutions are likely to prove more cost-effective. This is not our only communal heating supply in Westminster. There are many buildings with communal gas boilers, and many of these have an anticipated end of life after 2030. This leaves the Council with a challenge, either to admit that net zero will not be achieved by 2030, or to set aside budget to replace these boilers earlier than planned. At present, your budget is not coherent with your target. You have a 2030 target whilst quietly budgeting for a 2040 delivery. Seeing money being returned to the General Fund from the Climate Reserve makes no sense when the Council is not on course to hit its 2030 net zero target. Tackling climate change, though, need not be a cost centre. E-bikes are a huge revenue-raising opportunity. Parking spaces can be rented out with 100% occupancy to the e-bike hire companies. However, whilst the peak number of e-bike journeys rose by over 50% last year, the number of parking spots has only risen by around 15%. This is a huge revenue-raising opportunity that has been missed, and it is no wonder that we have parking chaos when it comes to e-bikes. We have disorder and lost income, the worst of both worlds. Looking ahead to climate change adaptation, we're not seeing sufficient budget being used on or set aside for adapting our housing stock to avoid overheating. Extreme heat is one of the deadliest weather-related risks in the UK, causing thousands of excess deaths during severe summers. Our sheltered housing residents are at risk as they swelter in their flats, unable to cool down as the temperatures push 30 degrees at night. In addition, all our residents will be suffering poor sleep and low productivity. We need to be installing both passive and active cooling initiatives. White roofs, brise soleil, shutters, blinds all need to be considered on the outside of our housing stock. We need to be including this in major works programmes now, given the issues we already face with overheating. So to summarise, we need to stop wasting money on trying to crowbar district heating into a built-up area with listed buildings. We need to raise revenues where we can by capitalising on the e-bike trend. Finally, we need to be spending more on adapting our built environment for a hotter climate to protect the vulnerable within our society. We are not opposing climate action. We are opposing ineffective, financially reckless climate action and arguing for more urgent protection of vulnerable residents. We would prioritise cost-effective individual electric heating options, invest in grid innovation, boost revenue through transport reform, and accelerate climate adaptation where lives are at risk. This is how we protect residents, protect public finances, and still meet our climate responsibilities. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pipford. I now call Councillor Aisha Less.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I have the privilege of being responsible for public safety and the future of our children. And I stand here this evening proud of our record over the last 4 years. This budget continues our vision for a fairer Westminster where young people thrive, where our streets feel safe, and where everyone has the freedom to feel secure, happy and supported by a council that listens. So what have we been doing to strengthen our community safety? Under this administration, Westminster has more police officers, more patrols, more city inspectors, more fines issued, more support for vulnerable people and more safeguards for our residents. We've just launched our citywide public space protection order, targeting the low-level crime that often impacts residents most. This is built on success of our existing PSPOs. Enforcement of these orders is delivered by the police, city inspectors, PACT, also known as the Police and Council Tasking Team, and the Street-Based Intervention Team, also known as SBIT. In February alone, PACT has patrolled over 250 hours, which has led to 20 community protection warnings and 10 arrests. The local public protection approach is aided by our CCTV network, which over the past year has captured over 1,100 incidents and supported 90 arrests. 199 cameras are now in place across the city. 7 more will be delivered over the next few weeks, and soon we will have an extra 30 cameras on the way. Over the last year, the Council has issued nearly 4,400 fixed penalty notices, including 2,600 fines for dumped waste, 950 fines for poorly parked dockless bikes, 350 for nuisance vehicles, and 280 fines for pedicab drivers. And we will continue supporting our enforcement teams, the police and our community partners to prevent violence and tackle persistent ASB. We are also continuing to shape a safe, accessible, vibrant Westminster after dark, where everyone should feel welcome. When it comes to public protection, this administration has done so much to support vulnerable people and to make our city safer and fairer. But as always, we know there is more to do, and we will be working tirelessly to make sure that everyone feels secure in their homes, in public spaces and on our streets. Focusing on the other half of my portfolio, Lord Mayor, I'm very proud of our children's services provision. Westminster is one of only 2 local authorities to have 3 consecutive outstanding judgments from Ofsted. Through this budget, we are continuing to deliver universal free school lunches supporting 14,000 pupils per day to make sure that no one goes hungry when learning. Our social care team are great at supporting families and ensuring that every child gets the best possible chance. I had the pleasure of attending the Children in Care Awards 2 weeks ago, and I met so many inspirational young people who we should be very proud of. In this budget, we are investing £5.6 million in the new Best Start Family Hub and Community Centre in Queen's Park, which will bring together vital services under one roof. This will make it easier for parents, carers and young people to get the support they need. Through our SEND provision, we are continuing to create welcoming and considerate environment for children who require extra support. Over the next year, we are improving services and officers will examine the impact of SEND reforms following the publication of the government's white paper last week. We are listening to families and we will find the best route forward together. I think we can all agree that our children are our future, and as a council, we do all we can to ensure every child gets the start they need. So, Lord Mayor, I'm proud to say that this is an administration that puts compassion at its heart. We are delivering a Westminster with safer streets, happier communities and greater opportunities for our children. A Westminster where antisocial behaviour is addressed. A Westminster where communities feel confident they are supported. A Westminster where every child can have hope of achieving their very best. And a Westminster, above all, that is fairer. This is what we are delivering, and I look forward to implementing this budget. And I'd also like to just put on record, Lord Mayor, my heartfelt thanks to all our council officers for supporting both sides of the chamber and ensuring we have a good and safe Westminster city, our beloved city, as Westminster as we call it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Less. And I call Councillor Nafsika Butler-Thalassis.
Thank you very much. Now, firstly, I'd like to point out the absolute hypocrisy when the finance spokesperson for the opposition berates us for 10 minutes for not raising council tax, yet proposes a budget amendment that does not mention council tax. Now, is that naked electioneering, or did he just not read the finance amendment before coming here today? But let's go back to think where we were in May 2022. We had just been through the debacle of the Marble Arch Mound. The Conservatives were utterly unrepentant and unwilling to learn the lessons of why they had lost. Councillor Paul Fisher was a proud Labour Party member with principles and honour, keen to deliver a fairer Westminster. And myself and my fellow cabinet members set about to deliver change. And while Westminster Council is a very well-run council with very competent and dedicated officers, but the change we needed to deliver could only be done by Labour Party politicians because it was specifically about resetting the priorities of the organisation. The changes we brought in were not ideas presented to us by officers, they stem from our values. That's why we realigned the council's priorities, invested in forgotten areas of the borough, improved transparency, and prioritised fighting poverty, inequality, and climate change in all areas of the council. And this brought about radical change. Now, remember when they cut all grant funding to community groups, we brought it back. We brought in core grants that have already helped organizations bring in even more external funding, and we have brought in grant funding to deliver public health activities that are improving residents' health and well-being. Now, remember when they cut all funding from youth clubs, forcing the Stowe Youth Club to close, now our youth clubs are well funded and offering Westminster children a huge range of activities and much needed childcare for parents. Remember when NSIL funds were just money piling up doing nothing, now they're paying for school playgrounds, electric minibuses and improvements in community centres. And I would say, remember Councillor Swaddle, but he mentioned it again today, how he can't stand yoga classes in Church Street because somehow women in Church Street do not deserve yoga classes. But thanks to our participatory budgeting system, residents get a say in what is funded.
He was, yes. Please explain.
Lord Mayor, I didn't say anything about women in Church Street. However, to be clear, yes, the middle-class ladies in Church Street who are going to the yoga classes there are not the priority for this council.
Thank you, Councillor.
And you'll find that yoga classes are used by middle-class women and working-class women across the borough. Yes. Right. And next, let's move to the changes in adult social care. The changes we made in adult social care are so good, the government keeps copying us, although admittedly our changes are better and faster. So, for example, the government has announced a £500 million investment to establish a fair pay agreement for adult social care workers in 2028. That's great. However, we increased the pay of care workers from 2023 so that it's £1.50 over the London living wage, and we also increased the rate for direct payments so that people who employ someone to look after them directly can also pay £1.50 over the London living wage. This change has stabilised the market, reduced complaints and staff turnover. The government has also just announced that they are generously increasing the threshold for when under 65s pay for home care by around 7%. This is excellent. However, it has to be said that our increase was closer to 50% when we equalised the threshold for those under 65 with those over 65. By raising this threshold, we have eased the cost of living pressures for hundreds of disabled people and their families, ensuring that 65% of our home care service users no longer pay for their care. So Wes, if you need a hand, give me a call. I'll show you how it's done. And if we are elected again, we will raise this threshold even more, because we know that an extra £25 a week can make a big difference to people facing frailty and disability. That was your interruption, so you wait. But all these changes we have made are at risk. If Labour aren't elected in May, the Conservatives will happily roll back on all the changes we've made. With increased financial pressures facing the council, a Conservative administration will cut the easiest things to cut, all the fairer Westminster changes we made. Our youth clubs will be at risk again. Our adult social care users will have to pay more again. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nafsika Butler-Talassis. And I call Councillor Caroline Sargent.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I too have been thinking about when I first stood for election 4 years ago, we were just emerging from the pandemic and already facing tough decisions. Labour won, and regretfully, as we've just heard, and from my colleagues too, these tough choices were not made in Westminster, because week after week, residents tell us the same thing. Crime and antisocial behaviour is their #1 concern, and the data proves them right. Westminster continues to experience one of the highest crime rates in London, roughly 170 offences per 1,000 residents, and there are lots of other stats out there people can quote, far higher than many neighbouring boroughs. Phone theft, robbery, shoplifting, ASB remain persistently high, particularly in our busiest commercial and tourist areas. businesses report repeat offending, residents and visitors report feeling unsafe, and far too often offenders face little visible consequence for their actions. For years now, Conservatives have consistently called for tougher, more effective measures, both at a ward level and across the city and the council. So while we welcome the new Westminster-wide PSPO to tackle ASB, local people are understandably sceptical when such initiatives are announced just weeks before the pre-election period. And they're right to be sceptical that this administration doesn't take these problems seriously, because I heard paperwork relating to an injunction to ban dangerous and disruptive car meets has been sitting on a desk since September, despite commitments. 6 months, yes, despite commitments made to Councillor Robertson after January's full council meeting. This budget anticipates added income from enforcement, but we also need reassurance that law-abiding people will not be targeted unfairly by overzealous enforcement, and that it will focus on those responsible for the worst offences. This administration also highlights a £3 million allocation for policing and enforcement, providing 9 new police officers over 3 years. A welcome investment. The cost appears high, so what exactly is Westminster getting in return? And let's be honest about the scale. Against the severe pressures facing the Met, 9 police officers alone won't compensate for the years of stretched resources. Because this council has too often failed to robustly challenge the Labour Mayor on policing capacity in Westminster, where the demand is uniquely intense and where our police officers are routinely diverted from their regular duties to police weekly protests and hate marches. But the Conservatives have a plan to deliver real change. We would increase the number of visible uniformed enforcement officers on our streets and ensure our city teams are empowered to enforce the rules. They are not social workers and nor are the police. Their role is enforcement, and we should support them to do it confidently, legally and visibly. We take stronger action on dumped e-bikes, working with the providers, and begin tackling the dangerous riding behaviours, which is often from delivery riders who are possibly working here illegally, as some of the recent action days have found, putting not just pedestrians but all road users, including other cyclists, at risk. We will support lawful and proportionate use of facial recognition technology to help the Met identify repeat offenders. And yes, we do need effective CCTV coverage and tasking in our busiest locations. Businesses want this too, and they are willing to help. But we still lack evidence that CCTV is being fully utilised by the city teams and police. And I know I keep asking about this. Is it being used, is it requested for enforcement? Because despite the £2 million investment, the latest reports still show only about 62 requests from the city teams or the police for December and January. I've got the report right here, okay?
You're clearly misreading.
We must be honest too about the daily realities of our... It's here in the report. We must also be honest about the daily realities of our streets, particularly around Victoria and some of the iconic sites in our city. We've received emails describing school children witnessing open drug use, aggressive begging, street drinking, defecation, worse, if you can imagine it, on their way from school. And they're also told that the rubbish accumulating around some of these sort of tent encampments and so on can't be removed as it might be personal property. Is anyone considering the security implications of allowing bags and luggage and things to be left lying around on the streets of central Westminster, particularly in the current environment? A Conservative approach means firm and legal enforcement alongside genuine support, but always with the safety of law-abiding Westminster residents as the first priority. It means challenging the Labour government and the Mayor when resources fall short, not shielding them. We want people to come to Westminster to work, to study, invest. We all want them to visit our world-class institutions and enjoy the entertainment districts, but those who come here must also respect it as our home. Public safety is the foundation and non-negotiable to ensure all our communities feel safe. They don't and won't if this budget doesn't reflect those priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sargent. I now call Councillor David Harvey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This Labour budget, Lord Mayor, will fail the 20,000 households living in Westminster social homes and everybody waiting for one. Why? Remember, first of all, when it comes to housing, that governing Westminster is not about the theatre we've heard from Labour this evening. As Councillor Fisher said, it's about real stewardship. But we have a pickpocket Labour government taking 75 million from Westminster residents and refusing to recognising the costs of being the heart of London. And in front of that sits this council's deficits. Anyone who can count can see the budget doesn't add up. A budget that blows the reserves, ignores the future deficit, and pretends that everything will somehow work out. It fails any test of truth and fairness. So it's not just a budget here about finance, it's about ethics. Let me turn to the HRA. It's ring-fenced for a good reason, to make sure that service charges and rents go to repairs, maintenance and estate services. But the budget hides the truth about the pressures on the other services the residents rely on. Not the HRA, but the General Fund pays for adult social care, for children's services, for homeless services, for temporary accommodation and borough-wide community safety. Even the cost of living fund, so touted by the leader, which we also supported. Labour's heading the SAM budget threatens everything. Fairness demands the council levels with residents, and you refuse to level with residents. So, what breaks first? So the Evening Standard has already pointed to the financial chasm facing Westminster. What happens if construction costs rise by 10% because of the new wall? What happens if TA costs go up in the way they might well? What happens if massive funding cuts are simply ignored? Wait a minute, that's exactly what's happening. This is the psychology of the gambler. Cuts are ignored, hoping the next spin, the next roll of the dice will solve the problem. Tenants face a rent increase of nearly 5%. Legal, yes. But what measurable improvement are they going to see? Repair satisfaction remains at best mediocre, it's declining, it's trending downwards. That's what residents see. And imperfect as we were, our approval rates were generally 7 to 10% higher for repairs. And every one of us in this chamber can tell stories about horrific casework. A small leak on the Grosvenor Regency estate at the weekend, ignored, not fixed, and now catastrophic damage to the home of a sick resident. The case of the Churchill Gardens Community Hall pointed out to me, no repairs, the real picture of this administration. Look at PDHU, as Councillor Pitt-Ford has said. Look at complaint satisfaction at 30%. Southwark, Camden, Lambeth and Manchester all do better, some much better. That's the real story. Residents need to trust the system. Too often, they can't. For example, we designed a resident advocate system to build trust with good officers working beside residents. But the administration removed the link and the scheme failed despite those officers. So instead, we propose that £250,000 from this budget goes into an arm's length advice and advocacy system for leaseholders and tenants who need to stand up to the council because the council won't stand up for them. And that's building trust by building residents. It might even save money. The massive pity is it's even necessary at all. Let me move to regeneration. Let me be clear. Of course we want to build more affordable homes. We built or planned 3/4 to 4/5 of everyone in the pipeline at the moment. This administration, in comparison, has built no new homes. And when we look, thank you, Rachel. When we look at the recent announcements, it's grandstanding, not building. Take the Queen Mother scheme with 156 promised homes. Because of the non-funding of the leisure centre, that's really very unlikely to happen in our lifetimes. Other schemes like Sussex Gardens too, highly unlikely. You can't maximise new build, retrofit fire safety compliance and repair improvements simultaneously without financial consequences. And hard as it is, I would urge this council, this administration, to give a true and fair view. Residents deserve it. They're not getting one, and a fairer Westminster should not move from optimism to self-deception. Now, Lord Mayor, for once, I haven't quoted a philosopher. But never fear. I have Iris Murdoch's discipline of attention in mind. The refusal to avert our gaze from reality, and you're averting your gaze from reality, and you can do better. But as I try and quote Iris Murdoch, another voice comes to my mind. It's the voice of Sir Michael Caine. Adam, you're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. Instead, this budget risks blowing this council and the services our residents rely on right over the edge of the cliff. Our residents deserve better, Lord Mayor. The budget's neither true nor fair. Thank you.
call Councillor Lisa Begum.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think it's shameful that the opposition did nothing about the PDHU for decades, leaving residents to deal with constant leaks and repair issues. This administration is doing something about it, and we've made it clear that our priority is to ensure we choose the most affordable option for our residents. So shame on you. Lord Mayor, we inherited a housing service that had suffered from years of neglect and mismanagement, at the same time as homelessness pressures were rising at an unprecedented rate. Homelessness applications have more than tripled since 2017, and by September we had nearly 4,500 households in temporary accommodation, a 63% increase since we took office. And in that context, this administration has acted. Last year, we secured 1,120 properties for temporary accommodation, including 143 through spot and bulk purchases. This year, we have already secured over 250 more. This budget provides $170 million over the next 3 years to continue that programme, reducing reliance on costly hotels, improving standards, and protecting the taxpayer. We have committed $8.2 million to rough sleeping initiatives this year, more than any other council, allowing us to increase and improve our support services. We brought the Housing Solution Service in-house to give us the control we need to strengthen prevention and accountability. In housing services, we have improved repairs performance, opened 4 new housing service centres, ended flexible tenancies, introduced a fairer allocations policy, launched an innovative housing compact with 11 registered providers in Westminster, expanded major works repayment plans for leaseholders, and much else besides. And I am also proud that our housing service achieved a C1 rating from the Social Housing Regulator last year, the first council in London to do so. That reflects sustained, serious improvement. None of this happened by accident. It required investment, reform, and a willingness to confront problems left unresolved for too long. This budget protects that progress, providing the funding we need to continue our TA acquisitions and support the next phase of our transformation programme. And despite financial pressures, this budget provides another $1 million for the Rent Support Fund and confirms it as an ongoing investment. Now, Lord Mayor, I want to address the Conservative amendment. They propose enhanced advice services for tenants and leaseholders, funded by cutting $250,000 from the resident engagement budget. No one disputes the importance of quality advice for residents navigating major housing issues. The question is how we deliver it effectively and whether cutting resident engagement is the right way to fund it. We already provide substantial support through our housing teams, whether that's resident advocates supporting residents in dealing with major works, or our new customer advocacy team and our care and support team helping vulnerable residents with complex repair issues. On advice specifically, we fund organisations like the Citizens Advice Bureau through our advice partnership and local law centres so our residents can access independent support on housing issues involving the council. We are also working with the Leasehold Advisory Service, the CAB and others to explore how to strengthen access to advice for leaseholders here in Westminster. This amendment, on the other hand, gives no detail on how enhanced advice services would work, not least because it wouldn't be credible, lawful, or even possible for the council to directly provide independent advice to residents when it comes to challenging its own services. The amendment would also cut $250,000 from the resident engagement budget, the funding that ensures residents are informed, consulted, and able to shape decisions. As we deliver significant major works and regeneration, strong engagement is not optional, it is essential. Reducing that capacity risks creating the very problems the amendment claims to solve. Housing is not just about bricks and mortar, it is about dignity, stability, and opportunity. Whether a child has space to study, whether an older resident feels secure, and whether families can put down roots, residents deserve better than a housing service defined by drift, short-termism, and weak oversight. Unlike the previous administration, which allowed problems to embed and performance to stagnate, we have taken a different approach, investing, reforming, and raising standards. We are delivering the stability, transparency and reliability that residents deserve. We have made real progress since 2022. This budget ensures that progress continues, and I'm pleased to support it. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Begum. Now, Councillor Alan Mendoza.
Lord Mayor, I was so looking forward tonight to finally hearing something of substance from that side of the chamber. 4 years, 4 long and painful years. And there we were hoping that at the end of it, there would be a striking statement of intent going forwards. Instead, what do we get? We get instead a fairer Westminster, which has run into, ironically, the fair funding assessment. And I almost feel sorry for the leader, actually, because it put me in mind of the rather famous Geoffrey Howe comment in his resignation speech, saying, "There go the opening batsmen to the crease, only to discover that the team captain had broken their bats in the dressing room before the game." Because the reality is that this administration is unable to deliver, not simply on its own account, but because its government has cut the legs from under it as well. And we all thought, did we not, that perhaps the only possible benefit of having a Labour administration in Westminster, and I say possible because it's proven wrong, is that with a Labour national government, there might have been some interplay between the two. You might have been expected, had you not, to have seen some kind of special arrangement, some kind of lobbying that would work. Instead, we have seen a failure to lobby effectively. We have seen the Labour Chancellor cutting away from this administration and, crucially, from the residents of Westminster, of this city, money that fairly belongs to them, not to other authorities. And yes, they complained about it, but they complained about it in the same way they did they not, with Oxford Street. You would have thought, again, with a Labour mayor, they would have been able to, again, affect change in a positive way. They haven't. They failed completely with their own party, and that is the damning indictment of this administration. They have sat there, they've got a Labour national government, they've got a Labour mayor of London, and Westminster's got the worst deal, the most unfair deal that it's ever had before. That is your legacy on that side of the chamber. An unfairer Westminster, unfairer result for the people of this city. And even with the council tax news, which, OK, none of us on this side certainly would object to a freezing of council tax. But look at what you've done to get there. You've raided the reserves. You've had a £75 million bill to plug, and you've done it by raiding the reserves. A responsible, prudent administration would have known what was coming. Your officers knew what was coming. By the end of last year, the officers had pretty much predicted exactly how much money was going to need to come out of budgets going forwards. Had you been an effective administration, you would have responded, and rather than treating it like a Rumsfeldian unknown, you would have acted and would have started to take money out in places where you could have done so. Instead, you have left it for the next administration. I wonder why that is. We all know an election is coming. You clearly have no confidence that you'll be the next administration. You would like others to pick up the mess that your government has left and bequeathed to all of us in that way. That is your legacy again. Largesse, where it comes, no prudence, no planning for the future and going forwards. And could you have done other things? Of course you could have done. Just a quick examination of waste. You can see so much waste going on. We've had the Geoffrey Osborne case already expounded. We can look at things, extraordinary items. My favourite are tree build-outs. In the current year, the council has spent £1 million on tree build-outs. You'll all know tree build-out is when you build out the road to put a tree, rather than putting a tree on the pavement. £1 million for a mad idea in that respect. And then, of course, we come to cycleways. The next budget 5-year process, £19 million on cycleways. But we know, for example, in Abbey Road, the zeal to put forward cycleways is out of all proportion to what residents actually want. And when residents want something different, the council ignores what they do. They want to spend the money in that way. And finally, we come to the very interesting case of equality, diversity, and inclusion. I've tried to find out how much the administration spends on this. I failed. I have failed because officers can't give me an answer. They've told me there's £500,000 on officers and on programming, but they've cryptically said it's embedded everywhere in the council. Everywhere is doing this. We're all spending money on this. So, ladies and gentlemen, millions of pounds are potentially being spent on this rather than on front-line services. That is your legacy. That is what you're going to be remembered for, and that is why you'll be voted out in May.
No. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Mendoza. Councillor Barraclough.
Yeah, it really is the uni party over there, isn't it? Wow. Are you standing again, Councillor? Are you standing again?
No.
Are you standing again, Councillor? Are you standing again? Yeah, so you're not, are you? In which case, don't really care what you say. But I'm delighted I'm following Councillor Mendoza again. Last year he was the Conservative finance spokesman, and I'm surprised and disappointed he's learnt nothing about finance in the last year. So once again, I'm reminded of his historic review of the 2022 national budget. Do you want to hear? Yes. Councillor Mendoza said Kwasi Kwarteng has just delivered the best and boldest Chancellor's speech of my adult lifetime. Simply brilliant, he said. History, it turns out, had other ideas. Lord Mayor, let's not forget the absolute shambles the Conservatives left behind in Whitehall as much as they did in the City of Westminster. Let's not forget, in their final term, the people opposite lost not one but two deputy leaders of the council due to scandal. Robert Davis resigned for accepting gifts from half of all property firms with applications before his committee, and Melvin Kaplan resigned for losing £6 million on the Marble Arch Mound, London's worst tourist attraction. Look, it's in the account still. The Conservatives were too close to developers, too loose with public money, and too far from our residents. And since they want to talk about Oxford Street, let's talk about Oxford Street. They criticised the Mayor's plans for pedestrianisation. They were going to pedestrianise Oxford Street themselves. In 2021, they announced traffic-free piazzas at Oxford Circus. Rachel Rowbottom said, quote, they're going to create an iconic destination at the heart of London, 100 metres either side of Oxford Circus pedestrianised. They were going to do that. They complained about the Mayor's consultation, yet in 2022, they plan to press ahead with their plans with no consultation at all. They spent £34 million on Oxford Street and delivered nothing apart from Melvin's Magic Mountain. They spent £2 million on an empty office. They were even paying for a storage yard with nothing in it. And all the while, we were told the council couldn't afford youth clubs or CCTV networks. And they want to come back into power. That is shameful. Yes. That was the chaos we inherited. And since they accuse us of rolling over on Oxford Street, let me deal with that now. Instead of rushing to court and paying more money to the lawyers, we negotiated and we got a good deal for this council and a best possible deal for our residents. That's not surrender. That's protecting our borough's interests and being the grown-up administration the residents expect us to be. Now, Lord Mayor, let's look at the big picture. When we took office, central London was on its knees post-pandemic. People were questioning whether the West End would ever recover. The traders even had to ask Adam and me to turn on the Christmas lights. Carly wasn't available. Times were hard. Today, the West End is humming again. We tackled the candy stores, we launched the Meanwhile programme, 51 new brands filling empty units, worked with the business improvement districts, installed new CCTV, back the theatres, back to Oxford Street, and now we're back in Regent Street, Piccadilly Circus with the biggest public realm scheme ever in the West End. Confidence has returned, investment has followed, footfall is high, tills are ringing. Let's not go back to the chaos of the Conservatives. And beyond the West End, we improved shop fronts, widened pavements, planted trees, brought public art to our high streets. From Harrow Road to Edgware Road, Praed Street, Pimlico, vacancy rates down, footfall is up. Most importantly, we focused on our residents, getting people into good jobs, backing skills. Programmes like Digital Dash, young people mentored by global tech executives building real digital products. That's what Fairer Westminster is all about. Now, we're going further. We're reviewing the city plan. More homes, more affordable homes to encourage families back to Westminster. More economic growth, more jobs, less emissions, encouraging reuse rather than demolition. modernising planning to make it faster, fairer and more transparent. And in the next 4 years, we'll make a step change in employment and skills. You've not mentioned this. It's really important. Working with new national programmes to connect residents with well-paid careers on their doorsteps. Lord Mayor, the choice before us tonight is not complicated. Do we go back to chaos, because frankly, it's chaotic, to waste, vanity projects and municipal mismanagement, or do we press ahead with growth, with confidence, jobs and opportunity for our residents? We have cleaned up your mess. We have rebuilt confidence. We have delivered. Now let us finish the job and support this budget.
Thank you, Councillor Barraclough. And I call Councillor Lorraine Dean.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Unlike other councillors,
Hang on a minute. Councillor Devonish, please. We've heard nothing but your back chat all evening. Please be quiet. Let Councillor Dean continue.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Unlike other councillors, I'm actually going to speak about my portfolio, adult social care. During the 3-year period of 26-27 to 28-29, adult social care will have to find £20.3 million worth of savings. 9.3 million are already agreed and 11 million are new savings. I hope a high proportion of these new savings will come from prevention initiatives. One of these new savings proposals is providing care that promotes greater independence through the latest occupational therapy adaptations and equipment. On the 30th of July 25, NRS, the community equipment provider, went into administration, and a new service provider, 24/7 Healthcare, took over in early August. Since then, the service to provide occupational therapy adaptations and other equipment for physiotherapy has at best been haphazard, and clients such as those at the City of Westminster College have had to wait months for essential equipment. We have been told that the estimated cost for continuity and mobilising a new provider is £200,000, but the financial implications are still being assessed and to date have not been confirmed. Not only is the service failing to assist clients in a timely manner, but there is an undisclosed cost to WCC which could affect the saving proposal. Another new prevention savings comes from supporting people placed out of the borough to return to Westminster as appropriate. Why would people want to come back into borough when there is so little specialised accommodation or adequate daycare services? How long has it taken this Labour administration to provide just 2 special accommodation units for adults with autism at the Lodge? The last Conservative administration, led by Councillor Robertson, were having advanced discussions about this project in September 2021. Yet 4.5 years later, they are still not ready for use and will not be delivered until at least the summer of 26. As seen in the proposed capital programme, £900,000 is still to be spent in 26-27. Specialist residential accommodation at 291 Harrow Road for adults with learning disabilities is aimed for project completion in 2029. And on this administration's past track record, how long will it be before they are ready for occupation? £500,000 of new savings would also come from extra nominations to general needs housing, increasing the numbers from 10 to 20 adults with physical, learning disabilities and mental health. I know of at least 3 people with learning disabilities in my own ward of Little Venice who are waiting for better, more suitable housing. While this is an excellent initiative, I fear it will not make much of a dent in the numbers of people waiting, nor will it be much of an incentive for people placed out of borough. Meanwhile, the daycare provision for 420 adults with learning disabilities is extremely poor. I have spoken many times in this chamber about the need for a state-of-the-art facility for community access Westminster's daycare services. Yet this Labour administration has abandoned the scheme, saying it is no longer required. In last year's budget, Adult Social Care said that by enhancing in-house provision, they could bring back 6 service users to the Droop Street, Lisson Grove sites, saving £100,000 per year. 1.7 million is spent per year on outside commission daycare services. If Labour had followed my vision for an expanded state-of-the-art facility at Lylestone Street for 100 service users, rather than the 42 catered for today, they could have saved up to £1 million a year. But no, let's waste money instead on the duplication of services in the Community Hub scheme. So, why would adults with learning disabilities want to return to Westminster, where there is so little specialist housing, adequate daycare, or efficient provider of occupational therapy adaptations and equipment? The savings for continuing prevention initiatives are at very best doubtful. I've said it before, Labour like to talk the talk about a fairer Westminster, but yet again, they are not being fair to our adults with learning disabilities.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. So, this budget is all about choices, and tonight we're choosing to invest in homes for Westminster. At the heart of this budget is a £160 million commitment to a new generation of affordable homes. Homes at social rent for families on our housing waiting list, where they are most needed, and homes for the key workers who keep our city running. With more than 7,000 households currently waiting for a secure, affordable home, we cannot stand still. And tonight, we are setting out the next phase of that delivery. This Labour administration is bringing forward 4 new sites alongside our already ambitious programme: Bravington Road in Queen's Park, Sussex Street in Pimlico, the former contact centre on the Brunel Estate and the Bayswater Children's Centre, and the Queen Mother Sports Centre. In total, this Labour administration is committing to deliver 1,500 affordable family-sized homes across Westminster as part of our overall pipeline to deliver 2,700 homes by 2035. To tell you about them, at Bravington Road, we have the opportunity to transform an underutilised site into high-quality, genuinely affordable homes. It's a site where we'll be practising what we preach when it comes to our retrofit first policy, and where we'll be aiming to deliver a 100% affordable development. On Sussex Street, we're proposing to turn a former World War II bomb site into new homes, aiming again to make this site 100% affordable, and unlocking much-needed open green space for the community. On the Brunel Estate, the former contact centre and the nearby Bayswater Children's Centre site present another opportunity to deliver new council homes within an established community alongside a purpose-built new community hub. And at the Queen Mother Sports Centre, we have one of our most ambitious opportunities in this programme. There, we are proposing not just new affordable housing, but a new modern leisure centre, improved public realm, and space for commercial use. And this all goes without saying that all new homes were built to high quality, energy efficient, and built to last. And of course, this builds on our record. Since 2022, we have delivered 800 new homes, of which 500 were affordable, thanks to our truly affordable housing strategy. In fact, we've delivered 15 fully affordable schemes across Westminster, with 3 more fully affordable schemes due this calendar year. For example, we've recently celebrated the completion of the 100% affordable schemes at Westmead in Westbourne, Turing House in Little Venice, Darwin House in Pimlico, and Wick House in Maida Vale, and shortly about to do the same. But they weren't 100% affordable when you built them, were they? And also at Queen's Park Court and Carlton Dean. And that's all while making progress delivering affordable homes on our major regeneration schemes. For example, on Church Street, where we're testing our innovative co-design methodology to put residents at the heart of redevelopment, on Ebury Phase 2, 291 Harrow Road and Lisson Grove. And I must correct Councillor Swaddle's point earlier, because in fact it was the Tories who spent £10 million on Lisson Grove to deliver absolutely nothing and shelve the plans. Plans which we have now picked up, spent a fraction on, and now have something ready to deliver. All the schemes that I've just mentioned we have improved, and the quantum of affordable housing increased through the £120 million and counting we've received from the GLA through our commitment to balloting our communities, something again the Conservatives bewilderingly chose not to do. But of course, we are also taking a holistic approach to housing in Westminster. It's not just about building new homes, it's also about approving standards across the whole system. That's why we've introduced a selective licensing scheme for private rented homes. The scheme has allowed us to double the size of our private renters enforcement team, driving up standards and cracking down on rogue landlords. Crucially, of course, it's fully self-funded through licensing fees, strengthening protection for renters without placing any additional burdens on our wider budgets. At the same time, we've also invested in our short-term lets enforcement team. In a city like ours, the rapid growth of short-term lets has real consequences for housing supply and community stability. We're taking firm action to tackle misuse, protect permanent housing stock and support residents who are affected. And we will, of course, continue to press government for additional powers and funding to help councils like ours go further. And all of this sits within a budget that freezes the main rate of council tax. In the middle of a cost of living crisis, we're protecting residents while delivering one of the most ambitious council-led housing programmes in our city's history, which has already been nationally recognised, putting us as the 5th biggest council house builder in the country. In this budget, we're choosing to literally build a fairer Westminster that works for everyone, not just the fortunate few in a so-called city for all.
Councillor Ormsby. And I call Councillor Tim Barnes.
Lord Mayor, colleagues, as the last speaker on this side of the House, or this side of the House, gosh, chamber, or this side of the chamber, I'm going to try and sum up some of, thank you very much, some of what's been said on both sides of the debate this evening. The record of this Labour administration over the last 4 years has been, I think this side agrees, poor. At the start of this debate, Councillor Hugg happily cited the city survey figure saying 85% of residents were happy with council services. Not a bad figure, you might think. But the same survey in 2022 showed a satisfaction rate of 94%. This council has presided over a significant drop in satisfaction with services, but are trumpeting it as a success. The fact it was quoted by Councillor Hugg tonight shows just how poor their own attention to detail really is. And this budget is full of further failings in Labour's plans for the year ahead. The administration uses the word fair often. It's part of the marketing tagline of Fairer Westminster that has been referenced throughout this debate. So let us apply a simple test to some of what's been said. Is this budget balanced and fair or unbalanced and unfair? Let's start with the huge hole in the numbers themselves. Even after a massive £19 million raid on the reserves, there's still an enormous gap of £75 million over the next 4 years. As Councillor Swaddle pointed out at the start of this debate, this is the pay less now and pay oh so much more later budget. Lord Mayor, this budget should forever be remembered as the Klarna budget. As Councillor Fisher warned, this administration are drawing down reserves today without the decisions needed to correct the budget in the long term, leaving tomorrow's Westminster residents and businesses with bigger bills to come. Colleagues, I ask you, is this fair? No! Test failed. As Councillor Pitt Ford set out, nearly 90 million is being committed to the Pimlico district heating replacement, money that inevitably displaces investment elsewhere. He warned of financial misprioritisation and even more mismanagement to come. There are better solutions that we should be working on now. But again, the hard decisions have been dodged, betraying residents who've been repeatedly let down. Ambition is easy, delivery is hard. Labour frequently promise what can't be delivered, as they have with the PDHU. This is misleading to voters. Colleagues, is that fair? No. Test failed. I don't want to ignore the small crumbs of good that this council has provided. I feel genuinely sorry for the way all of Councillor Barraclough's plans have consistently been trampled by others from his own party. Too late, they called out some of the undeliverable promises on Oxford Street put forward by their own Mayor of London. But even after recognising the failings, they failed to stand up to Mayor Khan and gave away powers before they needed to. It is an act of negotiation so poor, even Keir Starmer would have been embarrassed by it. Lord Mayor, I'm genuinely quite angry about this issue and Labour's betrayal of Westminster residents, particularly those in my own ward of the West End. This budget was Labour's opportunity to deliver real action on Oxford Street, but they have decided not to do so. In stark contrast, the Conservatives' proposal to help alleviate the unfair battle of under-resourced resident groups versus the resources of the Mayor's office would be matched with a £500,000 Oxford Street legal fund to properly examine and challenge the Mayor's mad plan. Unlike this unfair council, on this side we know our responsibilities, and here that's to help make this a fair fight in the interests of our residents. Labour has no plan to fight on over Oxford Street, letting down residents. Colleagues, is that fair? No! Test failed. As Councillor Harvey reminded us, governing in Westminster should not be theatre. It should be about delivery. But with this budget... No, the speech is allowed to be, the budget isn't. But with this budget, tenants face increases approaching 5%. Repair satisfaction remains weak. Complaint confidence remains low. Colleagues, is that fair? No! Test failed. Our amendment includes £250,000 for enhanced independent housing advice and advocacy for tenants and leaseholders facing major works, regeneration or decant. That's fairness, Lord Mayor, not this budget. As unfair proposals go on in this budget, Councillor Dean has pointed out that the treatment of vulnerable adults is just plain unfair. As Councillor Sargent told us, she reminded us that Westminster experiences 170 offences per 1,000 residents. 9 additional officers is to be welcomed, but it is not transformation. There is little more unfair than crime. The Council have not tackled it. Colleagues, is that fair? No! Labour have not delivered on fair housing. They have not delivered on fair investment. They have not delivered on fair crime and disorder. Our amendment delivers the fairness that this budget is lacking. I ask all members here to support the amendment and to vote for financial discipline, costed action and a genuinely fair approach to Westminster's finances.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. And I call Councillor Max Sullivan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Tonight we'll vote on a budget that will see us continue to deliver 4 times more jet washing of our high streets than under the Conservatives. And as independently verified by Keep Britain Tidy, if you were listening last time, we have halved the number of streets below standard for litter since they were in power. This budget will see the Council complete the electrification of the entire Westminster waste vehicle fleet and the depot to charge them. Meanwhile, neighbouring Conservative Kensington and Chelsea have just bought diesel vehicles that will pollute their air and ours for years to come. With this budget, we protect the Freedom Pass for Westminster residents over the age of 60 with a £12.7 million investment. We are rejecting local Conservative candidate Emily Sheffield's suggestion to cut back the Freedom Pass, before presumably being slapped down by her colleagues for saying the quiet part out loud, since her tweet has since been deleted. Sadly for them, I have the receipts. Finally, we have a realistic savings proposal from the Conservatives. It's a shame that they don't have the honesty to put it on their budget amendment. We were the first council in the country to issue £100 on-the-spot fines to shared bike companies for badly parked e-bikes, and now other councils have followed suit. The Leader of the Opposition is absolutely convinced that we should follow the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea in doing the company's job for them and using public money to tidy up their mess and remove the bikes for them. Meanwhile, the Kensington and Chelsea Conservatives don't appear to be convinced. One RBKC Conservative councillor WhatsApped me in November to say, if it works, we probably need to adopt something similar in RBKC. I'm happy to show you the receipts on that one too. Well, I'm glad to report that it is working. We've issued nearly 1,000 fines so far. Lime and Forest are paying them. And more importantly, our staff report that the companies are now marshalling much more resources and staff than before to remove badly parked bikes. We've also finally sorted out the shameful political decision of Conservatives in Westminster to deliberately ignore and deviate from standards on accessibility for people with visual impairments. That was the genius coming from that side of the room before we denuded them of half of their front bench. Here is a letter from Clive Wood at the Guide Dogs, who wrote to me recently after we announced the new policy and £1.5 million investment. I was delighted to read that Westminster City Council have approved a scheme that will upgrade the tactile surfaces at crossing points across the city, bringing these crossing points in line with national tactile guidance. For several years, Guide Dogs and other representative organisations for people with visual impairment and other groups have raised our concerns with the previous administration around tactile surface inconsistency, poor contrast and design at crossing points. For the estimated 6,640 people living with sight loss and thousands of vision impaired visitors to Westminster, we know that this landmark decision by the Council will make a significant difference to enabling independent mobility with confidence. On behalf of the charity Guide Dogs and those we support, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Westminster City Council for introducing a scheme that will make a real difference. Also from myself, who is a vision impaired and walks in Westminster on a regular basis. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the fair Westminster this Labour councillor and this budget is delivering. The last Conservative budget meeting in March 2022 saw them vote against their own budget by mistake. However, I don't doubt that despite your past sleepiness, I know you will fight hard in this election and many of you may win. What is entirely uncertain is how many of you will still be Conservatives in a year's time, given that 2 of your former colleagues now sit awkwardly apart as members of Reform UK, alongside swathes of the previous Conservative government, and you've all been clapping like seals at the Reform councillor railing against diversity, equality and inclusion tonight. Speaking of Reform UK, I see that Councillor Leila Cunningham is here. So nice of you to join us this time. You have recently backed the idea that I should lose my right to vote because I'm an Irish passport holder, and therefore also my right to stand as a councillor in the upcoming election. I won't stoop to your level. I will not undermine your right to vote. I will not dog whistle that your family vote as a bloc. I won't lick the boot of billionaires and fascists. I won't give credence to your lie that this city is worse off for its diversity when it's proof every day of the exact opposite. I will do everything I can to convince my fellow residents that they should reject Reform's ethnic nationalism and to reject going back to failure and decline under the Conservatives, who may well jump ship at any moment.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. I now call Councillor Jason Williams. No, there's no point of order, Councillor Cunningham. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down.
You just aren't bright enough to understand what he was saying later.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's been a privilege to chair the Budget Scrutiny Task Group this year. I want to begin by thanking members from across the Council who took part in the process.
There is no point of personal explanation.
Well, very welcome to film this speech. Okay.
I've been advised that you can speak, but I'd like to know what the point of personal explanation is all about.
I wouldn't call it if I wasn't going to tell you, Lord Mayor. Unlike the other side, I don't talk shit. I think...
Will you please use
No.
sensible language and not swear in this council chamber?
Councillor Maxwell insinuated that Max Sullivan insinuated that my family vote in bloc because they're Muslims. Yes,
no,
he didn't.
He
did. Why would he mention my family?
He didn't
mention. He did mention my.
Look, I would.
Councillor
No,
Sullivan,
I'm
did
not.
you mention my
No,
family?
you've got this wrong, Councillor.
Did you mention
Councillor
my family when you
Cunningham.
mentioned-
He didn't mention your family. He
did, Lord. He did. He did mention my family. Did you mention my family when you mentioned block voting?
Not insinuate that your family would vote.
Why are you bringing my? Why would you insinuate anything?
Insinuated in Reform UK, if
Why
insinuated
would you
that people
insinuate-
voting in a bloc changed the outcome of recent by-election. That's why. The context is absolutely obvious. I said I won't stoop to your level, and I won't. Sit down.
He didn't.
Sorry. Don't bring my family into this.
Councillor
and insinuate
Cunningham,
that they have
please be
block voting.
seated. Please be seated. I heard what Councillor Sullivan said. I also just checked with the Chief Executive what he said. He did not mention your family as doing anything. So that is my ruling. I'm now going to ask Councillor Jason Williams to speak. So what do we do?
Spent seconds right now.
But what's the motion? Okay, is that motion seconded?
Of course you can.
I've just sought advice from the Chief Executive. We can
vote to extend the guillotine.
We're voting to extend the guillotine.
Oh, come on. Could I have a point of clarification for myself? The guillotine had already been passed at 9:35, so you can't extend it at 9:36. You need to for.
Well said, leader. Given the point made about...
I'm using my discretion to allow the moving of that motion so that Councillor Williams can speak. And on behalf of the Budget Scrutiny Task Force, which I think is a reasonable approach to
Everyone
take.
wants to hear this. Yeah.
Can somebody second that? Councillor Les. All those in favour of extending the guillotine? All those against? All those abstaining? Okay, that's passed. Councillor Jason Williams.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's been a privilege to chair the Budget Scrutiny Task Group this year. I want to begin by thanking members from across the Council who took part in the process. Their commitments, flexibility and willingness to challenge has strengthened the work we've done. I also want to thank officers for producing the draft proposals at pace and Cabinet members for engaging directly with scrutiny and defending the decisions in the room. The task group has been clear and united in its view that this is a budget shaped in the shadow of unprecedented financial pressures on local government. The impact of the fair funding review, combined with rising demand and national cost pressures, has left councils across the country facing extremely difficult choices. Westminster is no exception. The risks set out in the report are serious, and I want to highlight three in particular. First, homelessness and temporary accommodation remain one of the greatest threats to councils' financial stability, driven by national housing pressures that local authorities cannot solve alone. Secondly, the budget gap, if not substantially reduced, risks leaving the council exposed. And third, the escalating cost of care for both children and adults continues to rise faster than funding, creating uncertainty that no responsible administration can ignore. Despite these challenges, the scrutiny process has shown that members are determined to ensure the council continues to deliver for residents. Each year, the task group strengthens its approach, and this year we've agreed further improvements, moving the next scrutiny back round to November, enhancing information sharing and ensuring members have the training and briefings needed to interrogate the budget effectively. That's how scrutiny should work: constructive, rigorous, and focused on outcomes. What is clear is that this budget has required difficult decisions across services, but it also reflects commitments to maintaining strategic priorities and protecting frontline delivery wherever possible. After examining the proposals in detail, and after a robust cross-party challenge, I am satisfied that the budget before us is robust and responsible in the face of the circumstances that we face. I will therefore be voting for it this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. That's the end of the debate, so I'm going to ask Councillor Adam Hogg to reply to it.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. What we've heard tonight from my Cabinet colleagues is an impressive record of achievement over the last few years, combined with genuine ambition for the future and a cast-iron commitment not to take recent progress for granted. We're all clear that there is much more still to do to meet the expectations and ambitions of the people of Westminster, both today and into the future. This budget tonight sets out an important part of the roadmap for that better and fairer future, sitting alongside the Fairer Westminster Delivery Plan and our manifesto still to come. Turning to the amendment put forward by the Conservatives, it comprises some measures that we believe are counterproductive and some that are continuity, i.e. the Council is already doing them. On enforcement, to keep our streets safe, the comparative record of our two parties is clear. The Conservatives cut the number of city inspectors. They scrapped the CCTV network. They got rid of their own integrated street enforcement unit. Labour has brought in our new 200 CCTV camera network. We increased the number of city inspectors. We introduced a new PAC team of 9 council-funded police officers and 9 specialist ASB city inspectors, focused on residents' priorities, linked in with our neighbourhood tasking process to focus on the things that matter to our local residents. We created the new street-based intervention team of city inspectors and housing outreach workers to help deal with those particular issues on the streets in relation to the rough sleeping adjacent community. We doubled the number of short-term enforcement officers, and we've increased support to the noise team. And finally, we've rolled out new antisocial behaviour public spaces protection orders across the city to use those new enforcement officers to deliver, give them even more powers to make a difference in our communities. And we've stood up to make the case for more support for Westminster from the Met, despite what the opposition said. Ultimately, that has been shown by the enormous uplift in policing in the West End to tackle the real problems of crime that has been there. A massive uplift beyond anything that had been there before, and the work that we've been doing jointly with the police to help reduce the number of abstractions, both for issues around guard trade, but also around the policing of protests, where the police have significantly reduced abstractions from local policing. And as I hope has been made clear from tonight's debate, any funding currently raised from fixed penalty notices, whether from our new PSPOs, existing PSPOs, or from the first in the country council fines on badly parked e-bikes, are already ring-fenced to fund the council's enforcement work, further expanding our capacity as funds come in. But that they've failed to understand that, particularly when it comes to e-bikes, the point is to force behaviour change so the companies don't leave them badly parked, rather than merely to act as a revenue raiser for the council. But can I provide reassurance that money that is raised from fines is being invested in our enforcement work? On support for leaseholders, we've watched with some interest over the last day or two as the Conservative amendment has evolved and the amount of funding attached to it has dramatically changed, as they begin to understand some of the legal requirements of what the council can and can't do in this space. The reason the council knows this is that for several months, at our instruction, officers have been working to develop an enhanced offer for legal advice, independent legal advice to leaseholders in Westminster. Clearly, that advice would not have been independent if we'd provided it directly, and we've been in negotiations with LEASE, the National Leaseholder Support Organisation, the Local Citizens Advice Bureau, and local law centres, with meetings already taking place and with more coming over the next few weeks. And Westminster Labour will set out a deliverable plan for providing enhanced leaseholder support in the coming weeks, based on that work that we've already been doing, not on the back of an envelope calculations that have been put in front of us tonight to try and create a talking point. And I've set out at the beginning of my speech my points about the Conservatives' Oxford Street Amendment. The Conservative proposal has no meaningful chance of successfully changing the outcome, but would blow up agreements that are helping support residents and ensure that the council gets its way on the eastern side of Oxford Street, a plan that is more than recouping any council costs owed from the previous scheme, and ensures that the council gets future money from development on the street. These are commitments that will be blown out of the water by the approach that the opposition are putting forward, and ultimately would leave the council tens of millions of pounds out of pocket if you pursued the course of action that you are pursuing. In terms of, obviously we've heard a lot about Jeffrey Osborne. The reality is a Conservative cabinet member saw a note raising some concerns about the company, but recommended with proceeding with Jeffrey Osborne, and they did that. They proceeded to move forward with working with Jeffrey Osborne. None of that information about those concerns was shared with the new Labour administration at the times of decision to finalise development plans, because the company's viability had improved by both the independent assessment and by officers. But unfortunately, as we know, Liz Truss's mini-budget knocked out Osborne and a number of other developments at the time, as set out by the administrators. The reality is the Conservatives were aware of problems, said to proceed with Osborne. We were not informed about this because the situation had improved. So therefore, it's very clear that we've taken further steps to enhance the independent advice and checks on contractors since then, and we've got on with delivering those homes. And in terms of PDHU, I think we've obviously heard a lot of easy answers from the Conservatives, both in the Chamber today and in recent months. But the reality is they left a system that was falling apart, where the costs were rising year in, year out, and residents were being harmed by the service failures that would be left behind. There was no plan to deal with PDHU. We know this work is difficult. We know there are things that need to be improved and enhanced. And that's why we are working, getting the absolute technical expertise there to come up with all the options that are being assessed. That information will come at the end of this year with decisions being made in 2027. We want to put the full information in front of residents. We want that information in front of residents to make a decision before jumping to conclusions. We are committed to delivering the most affordable, most practical option for our residents. We want to do that. There is no pre-commitments here at all. We are going to deliver the system that is best for our residents, rather than making assumptions, as Councillor Pitford does, for electoral expediency. And of course, on council tax, we are clear. We are taking the decisions we're making today based on our prudent financial management over the last few years. We know the situation from the Ferry Funding Review and stuff. We also remember the councillors weathered the years of austerity under their government too. And the reality is that we have a strong track record in this council of delivering departmental efficiencies. We are delivering a new transformation programme that will make a real difference to how our services are doing. And we are fighting, unlike the members opposite, to get a real share from the overnight visitor levy that we have championed in recent years and the Conservative Party nationally is decrying. So therefore, we are clear that this is a budget that we are absolutely committed to, that will deliver for our residents. And as the council meets for the last time for what promises to be a pivotal council election, I have a message for the people of Westminster. In 2022, you elected the first ever Labour administration to one Westminster Council. And we've been working hard to improve people's lives ever since. We've shown that Westminster doesn't have to accept the complacent Conservative status quo that too often let people down and still acts as if they think they should deserve to be in power. We've shown tonight that your Labour Council is protecting and improving local services whilst keeping council tax low. We're listening to local people and involving them in decision-making. We're working hard to keep our streets clean, get more people into good jobs and bring life back into our high streets. We're on your side, putting local places and communities at the heart of what we're doing with our investment that we've talked about tonight. Westminster Labour has delivered improved safety with our CCTV network and our PAC team. And taken real action on behalf of the council tackling antisocial behaviour. Stronger communities through 6 new community hubs, increased support for advice services, youth clubs and food banks, and supporting the voluntary sector. Families being supported through free school meals from 3 to 14, free swimming for families in the holidays, and free breakfast clubs now in many schools. On housing, 4 new estate offices, double the size of private renters enforcement. And on council homes, we're now the UK's 5th biggest council home builder because we changed the system. We got more money from the GLA and invested in council homes. And we're going to keep council tax low. We're freezing the main rate this year, as you've heard. The Tories seem ambivalent around that. And we'll make sure that Westminster retains one of the lowest council tax rates in the country. And tonight, we have set out a clear vision for the future of how we will build a better and fairer Westminster.
Okay, councillors, we've had the debate. Let's get down to voting. We now vote on the opposition party's amendment and Business and Financial Planning 2026-2027 to 2028-2029, which is part 1 of the report of the Cabinet. As mentioned at the start of the debate, these will be recorded votes by a show of hands. Therefore, before I call the first vote, the division bell will now be rung. That was it. Okay. Following the ringing of this bell, which you all caught, no member will be allowed to return to the chamber until after all the votes have been completed. The first recorded vote, by a show of hands, is on the opposition party amendment to the budget and council tax, moved by Councillor Swaddle and seconded by Councillor Fisher. This is set out on the order paper. Those in favour? Okay. Those against? Those abstaining? There is a majority against the amendment. I therefore declare the amendment to be lost. The names of those voting for, against or abstaining will be recorded in the minutes. We now move to the recorded vote on the original recommendation in Part 1 of the report of the Cabinet, Business and Financial Planning 2026 to 2027 to 2028-2029. Those in favour? Those against? Yep. Those abstaining? There is clearly a majority in favour of the recommendations. I therefore declare the recommendations to be agreed. The names of those voting for, against or abstaining will be recorded in the minutes. We now vote by a show of hands on the recommendations in Part 2 of the report of the Cabinet titled Capital Strategy 2026-27 to 2030-31 Forecast Position for 25-26 and Future Years Forecast to 2039-2040. Those in favour? Those against? Those abstaining? There is clearly a majority in favour of the recommendations. I therefore declare the recommendations agreed. The next vote by a show of hands is on the recommendations in Part 3 of the report of the Cabinet titled Integrated Investment Framework 2026-2027. Those in favour, please show. Those against? Those abstaining? Okay. There is clearly a majority in favour of the recommendations. I therefore declare the recommendations agreed. We now vote by a show of hands on the recommendations in Part 4 of the report of the Cabinet entitled Treasury Management Statement for 26-27 to 2030-2031. Those in favour, please show. Okay. Those against? Those abstaining? There's clearly a majority in favour of the recommendations. I therefore declare the recommendations agreed. The next vote by a show of hands is on the recommendations in Part 5 of the report of the Cabinet titled Housing Revenue Account Business Plan. Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. Those abstaining, please show. Thank you. There is clearly a majority in favour of the recommendation. I therefore declare the recommendations agreed. Our final vote on this agenda item is on the recommendation in Part 6 of the report of the Cabinet titled Westminster City Council Pay Policy 2026-27. Those in favour, please show. Those against? Those abstaining? There is clearly a majority in favour of the recommendation. I therefore declare the recommendation agreed. This is the end of the voting on the report of the Cabinet. Thank you. But we're not over yet. There's more. Agenda items 5 and 6, reports to full council. Agenda items 5 and 6, these are reports to full council, which we'll vote on in turn. The first vote is on the recommendation in the report titled Members' Allowance Scheme 2026-2027. The recommendations are deemed to have been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please show. Okay. Those against, please show. Those abstaining, please show. I declare the recommendations agreed. The second vote is on the recommendations in the report titled Constitutional Changes. The recommendations are deemed to have been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. Those abstaining. Thank you. I declare the recommendations agreed. End of voting. That concludes this evening's council meeting. I thank you all. I wish everybody who is running for election the very best of luck. I have to tell you, this will be the first time since 1982 that my name has not been on the ballot paper in Westminster. I promise. But I wish everybody, thank you. I wish everybody the best of luck. Thank you.